Nice hustle, Raul. Varsity style. All right, good morning, everybody. We are going to call this meeting to order. It's October 20th, 2022, regular city commission meeting. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Commissioner Duncan Walker, did you want to speak before the clerk read the modifications?
I just wanted to say that I need a point of clarity on D7, so I'd like to pull that to the regular agenda.
Okay, G7?
No, D.
D7, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, do you want to go over the modifications?
Yes, I will. D7, there had some added text and backup, and then also we'll move that to the regular business discussion agenda. D9, resignations of Deborah Neal Marisi from the Development Review Board and Carla Lewis from the UAB, and Karen Guerin, thank you, from the Nature Center Commission, updated text and added backup. F1, Downtown Strategic Plan Project update, updated text. F3, Gainesville Regional Utilities amended debt management policy, moved from consent to the morning business discussion. And then in 8, amending Chapter 26, Micromobility Services, added backup. O2, amending the City of Gainesville Sexual Offender and Sexual Predator Ordinance, Residency Prohibition, added backup. And one thing that's not reflected here is Z1, Land Development Code amendments to parking regulations and minimums. There was added backup for that item as well. And then one additional change to the regular agenda will be the addition of D7, Gainesville Police Department radio purchase.
Okay, and so let's try to do D7 at the end of our morning session, if at all possible. If not, we'll just have to get to it when we can. But if all goes expeditiously, we'll try to do that this morning. Okay, Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adopt the consent and regular agendas as modified, with placing D7, Gainesville Police Department radio purchase, at the end of the morning business discussion.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second that we adopt our agendas. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Our next item is early public comment, and we have none.
Okay.
Our next item is the business discussion item F1, Downtown Strategic Plan Project Update 2022 to 6-643, with a recommendation that the City Commission adopt the City of Gainesville Strategic Plan.
Hoorah. All right, Mr. Bredfeld, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the Commission. So today we wanted to try to get back to the Commission in a timely manner. The discussion we had with the Commission about the Downtown Strategic Plan in August. The way we're going to do this is my colleague and I, Sarit, have just a very brief presentation, maybe 10 minutes or so. But what we'd like to do is I'd like to just hit on the information in the agenda item for folks maybe who haven't been paying attention to this topic. And then Sarit is going to review some of the aspects of some of the changes that were made based on the commission motion in August. And then we'd just like to talk to you briefly about next steps. So just summarizing the agenda memo, as a reminder, the Downtown Strategic Plan was and is a top priority for the City Commission. It was mentioned explicitly in the City Commission Strategic Plan. We entered into a contract with MKSK, our consultant, in October of 2020. So this has been a 2-year process. Ms. Sela and I were the staff that were the project leads, but we did work with a lot of folks in the community and within the city. We came to the City Commission in April of 2021, and we discussed with the Commission how we were going to engage with the community. When we did that, the Commission endorsed our engagement methodology. I wanted to make sure the Commission was aware that we did speak with staff from EO at the time and the communications staff person to basically make sure that our methods were in keeping with the thinking on engaging with the community at that time. This year, we did a fairly in-depth dive into the plan with the commission and the community in April. We had a community meeting in the Bo Diddley Plaza that was following a former community meeting in October of 2021. We brought the plan before the GCRA in April, and then we brought it to the City Commission for a deep dive of its principles. We did that. We finished out the plan and brought that before the GCRA in August. The GCRA recommended approval of the plan to the City Commission with a modification, which Sarit can touch on. And the City Commission gave us 5, what I would call potential or prospective changes to the plan, not really into any real substance, but on the margins, I would say, and we've made those changes in the meantime. So I think with that, I'm going to ask Sarit to come up and basically go over the changes that we've made, and then also talk about the next steps.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Bradfeld.
Thank you.
Ms. Sela, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Sarit Sela. In the backup, you have a memo from MKSK, and it describes the points that were mentioned in the August meeting. So we addressed the 5 points. So the first one was add Depot Park and Power District as strategic focus areas to the plan, and then change the downtown study area into greater. So what we did is and I have here the overhead, I don't know if it's available, but so the first point had a couple of items within it. Add the Depot Park and Power District as strategic focus areas, then collect more information about the demographics of the focus area, and clarify which areas are considered downtown. So in terms of clarification of the downtown study area, we changed the nomenclature to say greater study area. So it's not downtown, greater downtown area, but greater study area. So the downtown area is the focus area, is here in red, and this is the surrounding context area, which we called study area. And as you can see, the plan itself, which is in the backup, has clouds, and this is to make it easy to follow up on any changes that were done. The Power District and Depot Park are, because they have their own activities and or plans, we saw them as context areas that are holding the downtown and have their own identities, either planned or already in action. And so that is also explained in that in page 16 and 17. We also we updated the demographics. As Eric mentioned, we've been working on that plan for 2 years, so we just updated to the most current demographics information. And that is all in the new backup. The second point that was requested was clarify that idea number 9 does not mean reducing the downtown zoning. So it does not mean reducing the downtown zoning, and this is clarified in the narrative in page 86. So if you go to that document, we can see here very clearly that the plan supports maintaining the zoning as is, and the densities and building heights already established in the downtown district are to remain, okay? The next point that was requested is to add an idea of more frequent and robust programming and events. And this topic is already discussed in the plan in idea number 2, shape the downtown identity, under experiential campaign section. So if we go to page 67, and the team elaborated on that topic, the idea of the identity is a very comprehensive marketing and branding campaign, which is not only signage and brand name, but also the experience that is part of being there. So what we're selling, we're actually, you can actually experience that. So that is here, the programming and the events, and we have elaborated on that. And then the next one was help with vacant spaces, such as pop-up stores and galleries. That is later in the plan in pages 106, 107, within idea number 13, which talks about unlocking real estate potential. So there is a little bit of text about that, about how to reuse, how to bring more life into vacant spaces, and also help transform sites with the programs. And then the last one was to bring more information and a path forward on a coordinating agency or organization to work with downtown businesses. So that is the main ideas of ideas number 15 and 16 are to form a place management organization and continue to build capacity. It's at the last portion of the document, towards the end, pages 114, I think, almost to the end, with different case studies and more information about how to do it, case studies from roles of other places, how to start. You start with clean and safe and can grow further and further. And the next, and moreover, to build on that, we're actually planning a retreat in the first week of November for staff and key stakeholders to start looking into the next steps on creating such an organization. The retreat is going to be a 2-day retreat, the first week of November, and it's going to have, we're going to have interviews with peer organizations like that. So December 1st, we're coming back to you with a downtown agenda item, and that will include our takeaways from those interviews. What did we learn? How can we move forward with an organization like that? In that retreat, we will also have discussions about the streetery, the Sweetwater Greenway and Park. And so these are, for us, the first next steps for implementation. So it will be the streetery, the Sweetwater Branch Greenway and Sweetwater Park, and then we will have the downtown management organization interviews, and in December 1st, we'll come back to you with that. Next week, the parking in downtown is coming to the City Commission. We will also, so we're kind of putting together a few items that relate to downtown next steps and come back to you with that soon. That's it for me. If you have any questions.
Okay, very much thanks to everybody who's been involved with this. It's been an exhaustive process, so thank you both for sort of giving us the update today and getting us to this point. I know a lot of folks are enthusiastically awaiting our action so we can really get to work on this. It's going to be a long process, but one that I think will reap incredible rewards for our community. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for your work and the updates. I move we adopt the downtown strategic plan.
Okay, a motion and a second that we adopt the plan. Thank you also for taking that feedback and incorporating that into this final draft. I think they are substantive but helpful changes. Okay, Madam Clerk. Nobody signed up. Mr. Blatt, did you want to speak to this item? Okay, come on up. Just a reminder for anybody here that wants to speak to items, we do have little cards that you can fill out.
I'm sorry, I forgot about
It's all
the
good. It's all
card.
good. It's all good. We're good.
I am glad to see attention on the downtown development, but when it comes to unlocking potential, I want to mention a couple more things. If I were visiting Gainesville and staying at the Hyatt or the Hampton, I'd be so thrilled to know that on a Monday morning or a Tuesday or Thursday evening, I could go a block away for free yoga classes with talented, licensed, and insured teachers. I feel 3 years younger since I started doing those yoga classes. So I think that's an example of how we could promote the city better to residents and visitors. Another example of unlocked potential would be unlocking the creek, completing the deep. We brag about Depot Park as our gym. We need to exploit all its potential, and one important one would be to unpipe Hogtown Creek and continue the strip park along there to connect all the way into Depot Park. Continue preserving the model of green space and moderate density housing east of the creek and business and development interests west of the creek. So I think that's an important way to get the most potential out of downtown. To a couple examples of how to.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak to this item? Okay, then we'll go back to the commission. All in favor of the motion to approve the downtown strategic plan, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Go forth and do great work. Madam Clerk?
Our next item is F2, Murphree Wellfield Consumptive Use Permit Renewal and Agreement with Liquid Solutions Group LLC, with the recommendation that the commission authorize the general manager as designate, negotiate, and execute an agreement with Liquid Solutions Group LLC to provide professional services in support of the CUP renewal extension effort by subject to approval by the city attorney as to form and legality.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. So one of the foundational things that the city of Gainesville does through GRU is provide drinking water to nearly 200,000 people in our community. As part of that, we do that through we get our water supply through an agreement and a permit through the state of Florida through the water management districts. We currently have a 20-year permit. We're approaching halfway through that permit. But with that, we have an opportunity to extend it beyond that 20 years to make sure that we have that water supply even beyond 2034, which is what the current permit is. And so Mr. Hutton, you all know, is here this morning to give a presentation about that, talk a little bit about what the permit is, and then talk about this opportunity with the ultimate request to have a consultant assist us with the groundwater modeling aspect of that work. So, Mr. Hutton.
Mr. Hutton, good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too. Good morning. Maybe start with if we can start with the presentation first. I'm gonna put that in a couple slides in, or I can start on that slide if we want to.
I'll get it up for you.
There we go.
Oh, close. Almost.
That's what happens when you have a mixture of slides and paper. So as Tony had introduced, I want to give you a little background. We provided an update of this to the Utility Advisory Board last week. So I'm going to give a little background and lead up to what the consumptive use permit is and why we want to extend it. So next slide, please. Or do I get control? Don't I? All right. Thank you very much. So
Hey, if you think that's cool, check this out.
All right.
And that's by way of letting all y'all know that we have these now. So if you need in your discussion with the commission or staff to point something out, just let me know and I'll give you the power of the pen. Yes, yeah, well, as the clerk pointed out, these might somehow walk off if they're not kept under lock and key. But anyway, yeah, just let me know and I'll pass one down. Sorry, Mr. Hunt.
That's okay.
You know I was chomping at the bit to show off our
okay.
new little tool that we have up here.
That's okay. So we provide water service to about 200,000 people in the Gainesville area. That's about 3/4 of the Alachua County population. And I'll show that graph in a minute, but we've been growing over the last 30 years pretty much at a steady pace. Based on that, we would expect another 50 to 60,000 more people moving in and receiving our water service in the next 20 years or so. Most of our water customers are wastewater customers too, so most of that water we send out to our customers comes back as wastewater to us. We collect, treat, and beneficially reuse that water. We have our goals, of course, of economic, environmental, and social sustainability. And now if we can show that graph, that would be great. From the camera, please. So this just shows our water use over time. And so this green line is our population over time. And you can see it's kind of a steady growth. With the exception, we had kind of a flattening during the Great Recession period. Then the blue line really shows our overall, this is the amount of water we send out to our customers from the Murphree plant. And you can see that around 2007, we really hit kind of a peak. And that is about the time that I think conservation really started to hit home that we needed to do something. And so that was about the time we started really ratcheting up those tiered water rates. Prior to that, we had, I remember water used to be 99 cents a K-gallon. I think we had a first tier that was like $1.29 or something. But, starting then, that's when we started ramping that up. There's also been a ramp up of efforts for conservation, amongst GRU, Alachua County, the water management districts, and just the overall public awareness. So we were able to bring our per capita, or per person usage down pretty dramatically since that time. And when you look at more recent data, this is, the last couple of years, we're sort of around that 21, 22 million gallons per day, which is about the same amount of water we were using back in the 90s, which compares pretty well. Compared to 2007, we were up in that 27, 28 million gallons per day usage. That is driven, as I mentioned, by that drop in that per person or per capita use, as we use, that's the term we use in the industry. So our residential per capita in Gainesville, or amongst our customer base, I should say, is around 59 gallons per day per person. That's for residential use. That compares pretty well with like the water management district average of about 85. So we do pretty well overall. So we've accomplished a lot in conservation, which has helped. Next, if we can go back to the slide presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Uh-oh, we're not advancing. Very good. So our overall water resource sustainability strategy includes planning and collaboration. The water supply planning is really done on a regional basis in Florida. As we've mentioned before, we're primarily located in the St. Johns River Water Management District, although some of our customers are in the Suwannee River Water Management District, and we're right on the border between the two districts. So we work with both of them and other stakeholders in the Department of Environmental Protection on water supply planning. One of the things we really emphasize is this stuff's pretty complicated, but we really emphasize sound science, and we also want to make sure that our customers are being treated fairly through these planning processes. Another part of our water resource strategy, of course, is water conservation, we just mentioned, and then the beneficial reuse of reclaimed water. So essentially 100% of the water 100% of our reclaimed water is used beneficially. About 70% of the total amount of water that we withdraw to send out to our customers ends up going back to recharge into the ground, and which that really helps reduce our environmental footprint. If you're taking it out and then putting it back in, you're going to have less impact. So I always never pass up on the opportunity to show a picture of the Sweetwater Wetlands project. I mean, that is an example of a project where reclaimed water is part of that project that's being beneficially reused for sort of a restoration and recharge. And the other picture to the right is our GRU wetland park that we're working on. And that project is a recharge project. It's one of the projects that's enabling us to move forward with doing this consumptive use permit renewal. So changing gears a little bit, so our water supply comes from the Murphree Wellfield. We have 16 wells that are pull water from the Florida aquifer. I mentioned we're pumping about 21 to 22 million gallons per day on average right now. We have this consumptive use permit that allows a maximum of 30 million gallons per day on an annual average basis. So a little more review, what is a consumptive use permit, or CUP? And as Tony mentioned, it's issued by the water management districts. It's typically a 20-year duration. Those consumptive use permits are required for all larger users, so that would be municipalities like us, but also includes large agricultural operations, golf courses, those types of users. It's the main focus is regulating the amount of water that's withdrawn. One of the things that the water management districts are charged with is that these withdrawals cannot cause what they call significant harm to natural resources. And so there's a number of metrics they use to try to determine whether or not there is significant harm. If you're by the coast, saltwater intrusion's a factor, not so much in our area. Wetland impacts is something they look at. There's a term called minimum flows and levels, which are particularly pertinent in our area, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what is minimum flows and levels, and that kind of leads up to why I'm kind of building the story as to why we want to renew our permit. So an MFL, they're set individually for different lakes, rivers, and springs, and what that does is that they try to define what level of pumping impact is acceptable to prevent significant harm. So there's a reality in that if you're even a small user, if you're pumping water out of the ground and using it, and some of that water is being lost, you have an impact on our water resources. And so it's not possible to say we're going to have zero impact, because to have zero impact, we have to basically pack up and leave. So the intent is to define, hey, what level of pumping is acceptable to prevent a significant harm, which really means a negative change in the ecosystem or somehow the water body's being affected so that it isn't what it used to be. And so that's actually a very complicated process. It involves a lot of field work, a lot of groundwater modeling. That's one of the things that's really difficult technically is that natural weather variations cause these water bodies to flow up and down. As everybody kind of knows, when it's raining a lot, Santa Fe River may be at flood stage. When we're in drought, it's really low. So it's actually very difficult technically to kind of figure out, well, how much of this is caused by pumping and how much is these weather. And so they tend to be very complicated, and a lot of times a lot of controversy surrounding MFLs. So how does it affect a water user like us? So if the district sees that, oh man, there is significant harm occurring, or we project it will happen in the future, then there has to be a prevention and recovery plan. Then if you have a consumptive use permit, then you're kind of on the hook. You have to figure out how you are going to comply and meet your obligations related to preventing or recovering that problem. And so that might be additional conservation to reduce your demand, might be some reclaimed water projects, might be you got to come up with a alternative water supply other than groundwater to meet your needs, or in some cases you would participate in like a regional project, which I'm actually going to talk about in a minute, that the district or somebody else is doing. So MFLs in our area of particular concern. So we're located here. That's our Murphree Wellfield showing all the wells. Lake Brooklyn and Geneva are over in Keystone Heights area, which is to the east of us. There is an MFL established for those lakes last year. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more in a minute. The lower Santa Fe and Itchituckney, which are also close to us, there are MFLs being developed for those right now, and those are also of high importance to us. In the future, there'll be MFLs developed for the Suwannee River as well, so those are not developed yet. But in general, the closer you are to a water body, the more likely you can have an impact to that. And of course, the bigger your withdrawal, the more likely you have an impact. So how are we meeting these MFLs? So as I mentioned, conservation certainly helped a lot in reducing our pumping rates. For this Lake Brooklyn and Geneva MFL that was passed last year, so we're not able to meet that on our own with conservation or with our recharge projects. So in order for us to meet that, we needed to participate in this Black Creek Water Resources Development Project. And I think a lot of commissioners probably remember we kind of got in a little bit of a controversy with the St. John's Water Management District last year on this, but ultimately we were able to work out a scenario where we were able to contribute to this project, which is on the order of a $100 million project, that we're contributing $2.7 million to that project. We actually made a first payment last year of half of that. We will be making a second payment next year for the other half. So in exchange for us participating in that project, it fully offsets our impacts to these lakes. And it sets us up to be able to move forward with renewing our water use permit early. So that's one of the reasons why we want to move forward is, well, we've paid our $2.7 million, or I should say our ratepayers have paid the $2.7 million. And, so we want to take advantage of that situation to move forward with, renewing that permit. The other MFLs I mentioned, the Santa Fe and Itchitucknee, haven't been finalized yet, but we are able to meet those MFLs, we feel, through our recharge projects. And I mentioned our new recharge wetland as part of that overall strategy. One of the things that we've had to do, though, is we can't just say we're going to do that. We have to show it. We got to prove it. And so that involves a lot of groundwater modeling. And so we've done a lot of work and used this particular contractor, Liquid Solutions Group, to develop what they call a sub-regional groundwater model to really better define, when we do this wetland project, what is the impact? How is this going to help? How much does it help? And so we're just completing that effort right now, which has been sort of a cooperative effort between our consultant, us, and the 2 water management districts. So all that being said, we mentioned before our permit, we got it in 2014, it expires in 2034. It is right now set at 30 million gallons per day, which was actually the same allocation we had in the previous permit. So we were able to stretch that allocation another 20 years from where it was before. We are proposing to do is go in and either get it extended or early renewal out to 2044. And so the intent really is to help ensure our long-term water supply for our community. It really, as I mentioned before, builds on all the work that we've done and what we've paid related to the Brooklyn and Geneva MFLs. And so we will anticipate we would start that process this year, and it's a fairly extensive process. It will take us into next fiscal year. There's a lot of things that have to be done. One of them is our projections. How much water are we asking for? And so you have to go through a pretty extensive process of projecting your future demands. And, we want to do it for our own purposes. We want to try to nail that down as well as we can, but we also have to demonstrate that to the district. What are you asking for? What's your need? And then on the flip side of that, you have to be able to show, well, if we pull this amount of water out, we are able to offset our impacts so that we meet those MFLs and other constraints. There's also a fair amount of work in developing monitoring plans. We'll need some legal assistance. I mentioned groundwater modeling is a big part of it. So what we're going to be asking is that we want to source Justify Liquid Solutions, who have been with us on all this all along, and they actually helped us with the last permit renewal as well. We want to use them for the technical work related to that. So that leads us up to the recommendation, which was to authorize the general manager or designee to negotiate and execute a contract with Liquid Solutions to provide those professional services in support of the CUP.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hutton. And I want to thank you all for making this presentation. I wanted this on the regular agenda because it's not something we talk about often, but it's one of the most important things that we do as an organization, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot you can put ahead of access to clean and safe water to a community. It's why Gainesville became Gainesville in the first place, right? Because we had a great water source. And so I wanted folks to have an opportunity to either learn or be reminded about the tremendous amount of effort that we have put towards conserving that valuable natural resource and how effective our conservation efforts have been. I mean, it's really a remarkable story that we, go out for a 20-year consumptive use permit asking for not an additional drop of water, even though we know we're going to have significant population growth, 50 to 60,000 people in the territory. So I really want to just thank GRU staff and Rick and you, Mr. Cunningham, have been part of that for a long time. But I also want to go back to David Richardson, who was a remarkable leader in water, wastewater, and I think really set up a lot of this professional ethos for the utility to establish who we are and how we're going to approach our stewardship over this precious resource. So I know there's a lot of discussion out there, and it was even part of our conversation last week. But the fact of the matter is that people need access to clean and safe water. We don't want folks to use any more than they need, but we want to make sure that when they need it, they have it and it's safe and reliable. So this is an important process. I think if we are, and I have no doubt that between staff and the next commission we'll be able to effectively get an extension on our consumptive use permit, it will really create a baseline sort of stability for the utility and the customers that we serve for that next 20-year period. So I'm glad that we're at this point, and obviously LSG has been a great partner in helping us do this, and having somebody that's knowledgeable about our organization and our past efforts is, I think, very helpful as well. So with that, I'll turn to Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your work. I think one of the things I think should get out of the more is how much we really have cut per capita. I don't think people realize how much we use per person versus in the water management district. And it's a guess, but I'm pretty sure Florida itself probably uses a lot more water than we do as well, beyond just our district, probably even higher than our district. I think that's information that should get out there and people should know and be proud of. We've done a lot. I will move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second that we approve the recommendation to execute the agreement with a Liquid Solutions Group to help us with our consumptive use permit extension. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to speak to this item?
Yes, Mr. Crowley Blount.
Okay, Mr. Blunt, come on up. Thank you, Mr. Hudden.
Great report. Thank you. I have constant concern and hope that the system has constant concern about the potential of corruption of our water system from the Coppers site. I never was satisfied with the solution of just encasing that stuff instead of removing it. And I wonder how close is the ongoing monitoring of that, and is that monitoring independent of current and past owners' interests and only in the interest of the public?
Thank you, Mr. Blount. You just gave me some traumatic flashbacks
PTSD,
there.
yeah.
PTSD, exactly, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
if
go
we
ahead.
can, so Rick is the right person. Rick has been working on that project for most of his career here at GRU, and it is an ongoing, it's not over,
No.
they're still monitoring and all that. So I'll let Rick just address that with a few
Yeah,
comments.
thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And so the project of getting that remediation complete is getting very near the end. It's taken quite a while, but I think one of the questions Mr. Blount asked is, well, how about, why can't they remove all that stuff? And those of us that might remember from way back when we were having initial discussions with EPA on that, is that was something we really advocated for. The problem with that is that just sort of the scale and magnitude of the project to actually dig up all that material and haul it off was just gigantic. And I think at the time, and we have our own experts that have been working with us on this, but at the time, the estimated cost for removing it all was on the order of $500 million. And so, the reality is that was just not something EPA was going to make the responsible party do. It was just not a practical thing. The reality, though, is that one of the things they did do with EPA is, and we've been really holding people's feet to the fire, is they have been using a technology to immobilize the material in place. They have had to demonstrate a lot of performance metrics that it's really working. And actually, all of the indication is that this process they've been using to immobilize the material in place really is working. So it's a belt and suspenders type approach. So they're immobilizing this, the material is creosote that happened from the wood operations. They're immobilizing that in place. They have to do monitoring to verify that in fact it remains immobile, and also checking the groundwater concentrations within that area. And then the other layer of protection is they're going to be building a subsurface barrier wall around the site so that if there is contamination in the groundwater, it can't leave from this barrier wall. And they haven't completed that yet. There's been some delays, logistics having to do with they have to relocate a stormwater ditch, and a Verizon fiber optic line had to be relocated, but it's just actually, what we understand is that's supposed to be done in the next year. The other thing, of course, is monitoring. So there are some what we call sentinel wells that are located between that site and our well field. Those are they are operated by the responsible party, their consultant, but there are some pretty strict rules on how they do this. So they do get a lot of oversight. So it would be difficult for them to somehow manipulate the data or otherwise not report it properly. So, and those sentinel wells have consistently come up clean. So we can never say, oh, we're 100% certain there will nothing ever happen. I mean, I think it's something we will always be monitoring the site, always be paying attention. Are there indications that the remediation has stopped working or something's not going right? That'll always be something we pay attention to. But I think we have sort of multiple layers of protection in place that give us a lot of assurance that our water supply will stay protected.
Yeah, thank you for that, I think, concise kind of synopsis of something that was, I don't know how, we spent thousands of hours in meetings, literally thousands of hours in meetings over that. I would really encourage, and I'll just, I guess, direct this at you, Mr. Cunningham. I would encourage you to include an agenda item at an appropriate meeting, whether that's a new committee structure or GPC or something, but a sort of update and overview of that Superfund site project, because I think I'm what's left of the institutional wisdom of that initial process, and certainly the new folks coming on might not have even lived here when that happened. And it's such a critical project and an amazing opportunity once they're done with the cleanup, that the commission, I think, is going to have a real good discussion about how that gets redeveloped and adds to the quality of our city. So anyway, I think it would be a great idea for you guys to sort of walk them through how did it start, what was the problem, how did we approach the solutions, where are we now? And as you said, I mean, I think we expect them to be done with what they're going to do beyond the monitoring relatively soon, and then it gets into now what do we do with that giant piece of property in the middle of our city? So I don't think we need to decide that now, but if you kind of put a pin in that, and then when the new commission is ready to drink from the fire hose, you can put that on the agenda and have a good discussion. And you might even want to do like a community workshop where folks that have been following this could participate as well. But anyway, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation to contract with LSG. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hutton.
Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Our next item is F3, Gainesville Regional Utilities Amended Debt Management Policy, with recommendation that the Commission approve the amended GRU debt management policy.
And Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, just like we were just talking about the water plant, GRU operates a number of very large facilities, power plants, wastewater treatment plants, over 5,000 miles of linear facilities that we manage. As part of that, the utility industry, you take on debt as you work on these things or replace them or install, renew and replace. And so debt is part of that, is part of running a utility. And the purpose of that is you may do a big investment, but you're paying for it over time with all the customers that use that over that time. The Budget, Finance, and Accounting Group, which is led by our Chief Financial Officer, Claudia Raznick, they focus a lot of time and effort on managing that debt and how to reduce that debt and bring it down, and to do that and to essentially save our customers money. And so as part of that, there are a number of practices that we have had in place that we wanted to make sure we codified. We have a debt management policy. We've had that for a while. We wanted to add some things to that to really document and codify what those practices are. As part of that, Ms. Raznick has brought to the commission in December of 2021 essentially what these items are and was presented to the commission. In addition to that, in August of this year, it went to the Finance Committee with these changes to the these amendments to the debt management policy, and now we're bringing it to the commission. And so Ms. Raznick she does not have a presentation, but she'll have some comments to provide more context than I just provided and more insight, and then obviously be available to answer questions. So thanks, Claudia.
Thank you, Ms. Raznick, welcome.
Good morning. So thank you very much for that introduction. I think you covered quite a bit of what I was going to cover, so that's great. Thank you, General Manager.
That shows good teamwork, like going in, right? Like the right hand and the
Absolutely.
left hand know what each other are doing.
Absolutely. So GRU is highly levered. That doesn't come to a surprise for anyone. We do have a debt management policy that's been in place for longer than I've been at the utility, and we update it periodically. And talking with the commission over the past, I would say probably 12, 18 months-ish, we were talking about the existing debt policy, but what are the things that we can add into that policy to essentially codify many of the discussions that we've had over time. And they're really surrounding delevering and credit metrics. And so what I mean by delevering, the utility needs debt to keep its capital infrastructure in such a manner that we can provide safe and reliable service so that the infrastructure is servicing our customers, but also producing the revenues that end up paying back our investors. And so when I say that we are highly leveraged, we have a significant amount of debt at the utility. And working with the commission, we've been talking about ways to actually start to reduce that leverage component. So that's the delevering piece. The credit metrics piece is that when we're going through the budget discussions over the past year or so, it dawned on me that we've never had the commission essentially codify where you want the utility to be as far as the credit ratings. So those are the two pieces that have been adjusted within the debt policy itself. I brought a couple of slides I can put on the overhead and talk to that, but are there any questions before I do that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't know if I have this right set up. Thank you, broadcasting. So these are the pieces of the delivering portion of the policy itself. So continuing as directed by the City Commission to apply savings from the 2020 debt restructuring. So going back in the memory banks, in early 2020, we came to the commission and said, we'd like to perform these transactions. And as a result of those transactions, we would have savings for the utility and its debt service. We'd like to take those savings and apply it to essentially either a debt reduction or a debt defeasance, or not issuing as much debt. We've combined that with the 2020 POB issuance in the same year. When the utility is projecting out the capital needs, it's typically 50% of debt issuance, so bonds, and 50% of what's called UPIF. It's Utility Plant Improvement Fund, which is funded by current year operating dollars. So we're not issuing 100% debt. It's 50% debt for the capital infrastructure needs for that year and future years, but also 50% of internal equity. We are looking to shift that number from 50% up higher for UPIF, which will help with the delevering defeasance debt reduction piece, and we'll talk to the commission more when we start to go through the 2024 budget process. When cash balance levels exceed the targets established in the City Commission approved cash balance policy, those dollars that are above those target levels would be moved to debt defeasance, debt reduction. The utility came to the commission February of 2019 to actually establish a cash balance reserve policy. It sets floors as far as the cash levels that are necessary to operate the utility. With the commission's support and approval with the multi-year base rate increases and the GFT reductions, in future years those reserves should turn positive. So in the water, wastewater, and gas systems, they're already positive electric and telecommunications, they are not. But as they're turning positive, those funds get pulled into this debt defeasance or debt reduction program. And then grant reimbursements. We have a grant program that's being built up at the utility, and if we receive a grant fund, we could take what would normally be spent in capital and apply that to this debt defeasance. I think at the end of all this, kind of like the bottom line is the plan that the commission put in place working with the utility, it's actually starting to come to fruition, and we're codifying it in the debt policy itself. There's a section that's been added, which is the credit metrics, and I apologize for the smallness of this, but there's a lot of information in there. These are codifying minimum credit metrics at the utility. We would like to strive for a upgrade in our credit ratings, and so that's what this is designed to do, is to get us there over time. So with that, I will pause.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all the work on this. And it's sort of been a long journey, but I think this is such an important step forward to really give consistent direction from this body to you and your staff when you bring us, whether they're debt issuances or budget recommendations or amendments, that they're tied to a specific goal and policy to achieve that goal. So I do think this is very helpful, and I know they will be looked upon fondly by our credit rating agencies, that they'll have that consistency and sort of foundation. Are there any questions from the commission? I know you've had a chance to discuss this with staff leading up to this. Okay, is there a motion? Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second that we approve the recommendation to update the debt management policy. Madam Clerk, anybody signed up to speak? Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe we're to the item that was pulled from consent.
That's correct. On page 3, D7, Gainesville Police Department radio purchase, with the recommendation that the commission approve the Motorola portable radio lease purchase and authorize the city manager to execute a contract for such, subject to approval by the city attorney's office as to form and legality.
Hey, Madam Manager.
Good morning. I'm not quite sure, Commissioner Desmond Walker, what the question is, but this item, Chief is here. We are trying to negotiate a contract as we speak. The funding, this is for radios using the same brand I believe that we've used, in the past, which is Motorola. There's a little over $700,000 allocated in the budget that was approved by the commission on the 22nd of September. It was it's a 3-year contract. Obviously, the intent is for future years for that same amount to be allocated to complete the cost of the contract, but we do have funds in the 23 budget to accommodate that. And again, the contract is still in negotiation. Chief?
Mayor, Commission, the radios that we have now have reached 185 of those have reached the end of life cycle, and we have to transition to a newer radio. We want to make sure our personnel on the same platform, particularly the sworn personnel on the same platform. These radios have advanced encryption, also have location, GPS type functions, has a lot of amenities that we don't currently have on the radios. But more importantly, we want to make sure that when we send the officers out with the radio that they function, because if they get in a position where it's not working, it could be a life-threatening situation. So it was time for those radios to be replaced, and we put forth the request to get it done. We thought we had a little more time. We could take the risk and go out and continue using what we have. I think at least 185 of those are 10 years or older, and that just is not something that willing to accept that kind of risk on right now unnecessarily.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Manager Curry, and thank you, Chief Scott. My question was simply just a point of clarity. In the backup, I just noticed in the explanation section that it says that the request was for the transfer to facilitate program and miscellaneous equipment purchases, but it sounds like you are specifically looking to deal with just radios?
No, this is specifically for the radios.
The wording, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
The
The wording that the commissioner is referring to is in the backup. It does say miscellaneous. I'm going to make an assumption. You can clarify that that is associated with the
Yeah, the
radio.
miscellaneous would be the software that's attached to it. You purchase the radio, then there's the software that's used for encryption, software that's also used to help provide other functions like the geographic locations and things along those lines. So the radios themselves, I think, are 600 plus thousand a year. The software that goes with that is 121,000, and that's something that's provided free the first year, and then we have to pay for the subsequent
Sorry.
years.
That's how they get you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Scott.
welcome.
I did get that clarity there, that all of these monies will be spent on the radios and the associated items
That's
to that.
correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good question. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Second.
Motion is second to approve the recommendation, purchase the radios. Any members of the public signed up to speak to this? Okay, back to the commission. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, I think, are we now to commission comment? Oh, we don't have commission comment, but Commissioner Ward, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wondered if we could move a couple of the items from the afternoon up because to keep the afternoon from getting overcrowded since we have a little bit of time.
I hear you. My only concern is we didn't do an agenda adoption.
Right.
If anybody was going to come to speak to that and expecting to come after one, they might be
That's fair.
disappointed or even angry.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you. I do think a lot of our afternoon items are going to be pretty quick, but a couple could take some time, so we'll do the best we can. Okay, with that then, having finished our business for this morning, we will be in recess until 1 o'clock. We do have quorum. It's quickly approaching the dais. And we have it. We'll call this meeting back to order. Thank you all. This is the afternoon portion of our regular October 20th meeting. And so Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, our first item is early public comment, and we have no signups at this time.
Okay?
Our next item is general public comment, and we have Ms. Karen Guerin here to bring comment.
Okay. Ms. Guerin, good to see you.
Is there an overhead projector available?
There is. Just lay it down. Yep, they'll get you going. There you go.
Oh, that's nice. That's better than I was hoping. My name's Karen Heron. I'm a wildlife biologist, a field biology consultant, and a former retired biology professor. And I've been a resident of Gainesville and Alachua County for 40 years. And I am here to speak to you about Gainesville's nature parks. I have a short description and a couple of proposals I'd like to make, and then I'd like to get some feedback from you, if you don't mind. I've been affiliated with our flagship, Morningside Nature Center, since the mid-'80s, back in the days of Pat Ashton, Gary Paul, and Larry Johnson. And then this is my neck of the woods. So for 35 years, I've been advocating for preservation of the biodiversity here. This is the last best example of upland habitat left in this whole part of the city. And I've fought off skateboard parks and lacrosse fields, just advocating for preservation of this park. I've seen gopher tortoises come and go. In 2016, the Girls' Place made a proposal to put in a lacrosse field there, and then they revised that, and some other things happened. But meanwhile, in 2016, this nature park, this part of the city park reverted, this small section of the park reverted to nature operations, and it became a nature preserve. There's wiregrass there. There's longleaf pine and turkey oak and red oak, and the sand live oak. And I've seen it deteriorate under a management policy that didn't address the needs of this. It was doing mowing in the summertime, impacting the wildflowers. And I've been working with the city for 35 years to try and preserve this park. Anyhow, so that's kind of beside the point. But how many people here in the last year have visited one of the city's nature parks? Wow, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I thought it was going to be like maybe two of you, but anyhow.
Yeah, so Ms. Karen, I'm afraid your time has expired, and I have to be equal with everybody, but.
I'm sorry.
I would, maybe we can schedule a meeting.
How much time did I have?
3. 3
I'm
minutes,
so
yeah.
sorry.
It's okay, but if you want to schedule a follow-up meeting, I'd love to talk with you more about this, and then we do have a meeting, a longer meeting at our General Policy Committee meeting coming up to discuss wild spaces, public places, and what sort of projects and how dollars might be spent if that does get renewed in November. And so we can invite you to that meeting as well to talk about sort of nature parks and how that fits into our plan overall. So if you would like to schedule a follow-up meeting with me, just talk to my assistant, which is right next door. I'll tell her to come out and get you.
Okay.
And then we can go from there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It goes quick when you're talking about something you love. Yeah. So Betsy, if you can hear me back there, if you could help Ms. Karen schedule an appointment, I'd love it.
When is the wild spaces public places?
Is that the?
Is that today?
No. It's
Okay.
G-
I'll follow up with that.
first.
Thank you very much for your.
Yeah. So it'll be the 4th Thursday in November. So that's not Thanksgiving.
Wait, dang.
So the 1st December or the 2nd December. I'm sorry, 2nd Thursday in December. Is that right? December 8th. Thank you, yeah. And Ms. Kristen there will help you schedule an appointment. Thank you, Ms. Karen. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Minutes.
Okay, sir, I just want to make, are you here for public comment, general public comment? Yes. Okay, very good. So then on to our next item, please.
Okay, our next item is ordinance number 211415, land use change of 25.38 acres of property located west of Interstate 75 and north of Southwest 8th Avenue. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan by changing the land use category of approximately 25.38 acres of property generally located west of I-75 and north of Southwest 8th Avenue is more specifically described in this ordinance from Alachua County high-density residential and Alachua County medium-density residential to urban mixed use, providing directions to the city manager, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Mr. Chan, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Good afternoon, City Commission, Mr. Mayor. My name is Nathaniel Chan. I'm a planner for the City of Gainesville, Department of Sustainable Development. This is petition LD 2236 LUC or Ordinance 211415, a future land use amendment of the subject area west of I-75 and north of Southwest 8th Avenue. So if you'll remember, the proposed area for land use change was recently annexed into the city on September 15th, 2022, and is approximately 25 acres. Per state statute and the comprehensive plan, properties must be given city land use and zoning per annexation into the city. So subject area is currently vacant. There's Alachua County medium-density residential and high-density residential currently. Here are the surrounding future land use categories. There's City of Gainesville commercial to the north, Alachua County commercial to the southwest. That's a convenience store on Southwest 8th Avenue. Alachua County high-density residential and medium-density residential also surround the subject property. Right, and here is the proposed future land use categories on the map. So for both parcels, we are proposing urban mixed use future land use. The urban mixed use future land use category is described as allowing a residential, office, and retail as standalone uses or mixed use development. As I said, surrounding area includes a mix of uses, including commercial, multifamily, etc. The proposal meets all of the review criteria for land use change outlined in section 30-3.13 of the Land Development Code, and more details on the future land use change criteria can be found on the staff report. On August 25th, 2022, the City Plan Board recommended approval of this petition, and today staff recommends approval of petition LD 2236 LUC or Ordinance 211415. Thank you. Happy to answer questions.
I think first that we have Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Bertin. I move ordinance number 211415 on adoption reading by title only.
So we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment? Nope. Is it just a vote? Roll call? Okay.
Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Hayes Santos. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Our next item is the second reading of ordinance number 2022-385, Quasi-Judicial rezoning of 23.55 acres of property located at the 2100 block of Southeast Hawthorne Road, South Side. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending the zoning map atlas by rezoning approximately 23.55 acres of property generally located at the 2100 block of Southeast Hawthorne Road. South Side is more specifically described in this ordinance from Urban 3, Urban 4, and 6 to Public Services and Operations to Urban 8, providing directions to the city manager, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Thank you. This is the second reading. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-385 on second reading by title only.
Motion is second. Commissioner Chestnut?
No, I was just going to move the ordinance.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, anybody sign up to speak to this? Okay, then on to the commission for roll call vote.
Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Duncan Walker. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes 6-1 with Duncan Walker in dissent.
Next, ordinance 211331A, text change amending Transect rezoning criteria. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending Section 30-3.14 of the Land Development Code regarding rezoning criteria, providing directions to the codifier, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance 211331A on second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the proposed ordinance on second reading. Anybody sign up to speak to this? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ward? I'm sorry, was that a nay? Thank you. Commissioner Chestnut? Nay. Commissioner Saco?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker? Nay. Commissioner Ariola? Aye. Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Aye.
And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes 4-3 with Chestnut, Ward, and Duncan Walker in dissent.
Ordinance number 210572, adoption of Public Works Design Manual. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, adopting the City of Gainesville Engineering Design and Construction Manual 2022 edition in accordance with Section 30-1.6 of the Land Development Code, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an immediate effective date.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Santos?
Thank you. Mayor, I move ordinance 210572 on second reading by title only, and also request that the city manager put some press release about the changes in bike facilities. These are some major changes to our city and building out kind of our vision, our goals.
Okay, motion is second that we adopt our ordinance on second reading and ask for some sort of community education and awareness be made to these changes. Anybody signed up to speak? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Commissioner Chestnut? Aye. Commissioner Ariola? Commissioner Duncan Walker? Aye. Commissioner Saco?
Aye.
And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Next item is ordinance number 2022-557, Gainesville Community Reinvestment Area Boundary. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending Section 2-406, Gainesville Community Reinvestment Area, City Department Powers, definitions of the Code of Ordinances to expand the real property included within the Gainesville Community Reinvestment Area to include certain real property located to the northwest of the intersection of Northeast 8th Avenue and Northeast Waldo Road as further described by this ordinance, providing directions to the codifier, providing a severability clause or appealing clause, and an immediate effective date.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Saco? Commissioner Saco, I'm sorry, I had her light on. Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move ordinance number 2022557 by title only on second reading.
There you go. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Thank you for all the enthusiasm to approve this. It is important. Anybody signed up to speak? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Duncan Walker. Aye. Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Chestnut. Aye. Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Aye.
And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Second reading of ordinance 211332 and, quasi-judicial rezoning of 1.0 acres of property located at 4232 Northwest 6th Street. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending the zoning map atlas by rezoning approximately 1.08 acres of property generally located at 4232 Northwest 6th Street is more specifically described in this ordinance from plan development to general office, providing directions to the city manager, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Thank you. Commissioner Saco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if I could get this to work for me. Okay. I move ordinance number 211332 on second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the proposed ordinance. Anybody signed up? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Chestnut. Aye. Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Aye.
Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Next item is ordinance number 211147A, quasi-judicial rezoning of 13.943 acres of property located northwest of the intersection of Southwest Williston Road and Southwest 13th Street, and west of Southwest 13th Street and south of Southwest 36th Place. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending the zoning map atlas by rezoning approximately 13.943 acres of property generally located northwest of the intersection of Southwest Williston Road and Southwest 13th Street and west of Southwest 13th Street and south of Southwest 36th Place is more specifically described in this ordinance from Alachua County Business, Retail, Sales, and Services, Highway-Oriented Business, and Hospital Medical to City of Gainesville Urban 7, providing directions to the manager, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Thank you. Commissioner Saco?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move ordinance 21147A on second reading by title only.
Motion and second to adopt the proposed ordinance. Anybody signed up to speak? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Hayes Santos. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Next item is ordinance number 2022577, amending Charter 26, Micromobility Services. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending Section 26-196 of the City Code of Ordinances related to hours of operation of micromobility services, providing directions to the codifier, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-577 on second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the proposed ordinance. Anybody signed up to speak?
sir.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayes Santos. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Duncan Walker. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. On to first readings. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. First reading of ordinance number 211417, quasi-judicial rezoning of 25.38 acres of property located west of I-75 and north of Southwest 8th Avenue. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending the zoning map atlas by rezoning approximately 25.38 acres of property generally located west of I-75 and north of Southwest 8th Avenue is more specifically described in this ordinance from Alachua County multifamily residential and Alachua County manufactured mobile home park to urban 6, providing directions to the city manager, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Chan, welcome back.
Hi, good afternoon. That was a lot of reading really fast. So thank you again. This is the accompanying rezoning petition for the last item I presented. So LD 2237 ZON, rezoning of the subject area west of I-75, north of Southwest 8th Avenue, ordinance 211417. Again, this area was annexed on September 15th, 2022, and must be given city land use and zoning. The property is 25 acres, and existing zoning includes Alachua County multifamily residential and Alachua County manufacturing mobile home, RM. Here are the surrounding zoning districts around the subject area. So there's City of Gainesville General Business District to the north, that convenience store to the southwest that has Alachua County business, retail, sales, and services, BR. And again, there's surrounding Alachua County residential multifamily, R3 and R2A. And then to the west, there's the Alachua County manufactured mobile home park, RM. Here is the proposed zoning districts on the map. So for both of the parcels, we're proposing U6 zoning. That is the implementing zoning category for the, or one of them for the urban mixed use future land use district. So U6 zoning allows for a variety of residential, non-residential, commercial, office, etc. on the subject property. And that is pretty much it. City Plan Board recommended approval of this petition. On August 25th, 2022, staff reviewed the petition as well and found that it met the Land Development Code, Section 30-3.14 of the Land Development Code, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chan. Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance 211417 on first reading by title only.
Second.
Motion is second that we adopt the proposed ordinance on first reading. Anybody signed up to speak? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker. Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Hayes Santos. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
First reading of ordinance number 2022-600, and amending the City of Gainesville sexual offender and sexual predator ordinance residency prohibition regarding applicability and geographic area. An ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending section 17-33 through 17-34 of the Code of Ordinances by amending the residency prohibition for persons convicted of certain sex offenses, providing a severability clause, a repealing clause, and an immediate effective date.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed at the last meeting, this ordinance amendment simply amends the current ordinance that's been in place since 2005 in two respects, both of which to make it consistent operationally with a similar state statute which prohibits the residency of people convicted of certain sexual offenses from residing within a certain number of feet from schools, playgrounds, and daycare centers. The two changes, the ordinance here would restate the intent, the non-punitive regulatory intent of this ordinance to protect children and protect against recidivism, recidivist acts by past sex offenders, and it would serve to add an operational date of November 28th, 2005, sort of an application date by which an offense would have had to have occurred for the prohibition to apply. And it also would change the size of the radius around these protected places from 2,500 feet to 1,000 feet. Again, both of which to make it more consistent operationally with the state statute.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nee. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance 2022-600 on first reading by title only.
Okay, a motion and a second to adopt the proposed ordinance. Anybody signed up to speak to this? Okay, back to the commission. It's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hayes Santos. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Ariola. Commissioner Duncan Walker. Commissioner Saco. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, I believe we're to commission comment. All right, anybody have anything at this time? Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just stunned. That's, by my count, what, 10 items plus public comment, plus early public comment, and my member comment in less than a half an hour. Kudos.
You're welcome. You're gonna miss me. There's a song about that. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. I had nothing to do with that,
You
obviously.
just,
Obviously. nothing to do
Mr.
with
Mayor, you just gave a preview for my farewell song. So, really.
That is a real song, right?
Of course it is.
I'd make it up. Okay, well, everybody then enjoy the beautiful afternoon we have out there. We'll be in recess and reconvene at 5:30 for proclamations. We are in recess. Okay, good evening. We're going to call this meeting back to order. Regular City Commission meeting, October 20th, 2022. And we've got an exciting unveiling here in just a moment. But first, Madam Clerk, our first order of business.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
So if you please stand me if you're willing and able for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please be seated. All right, Madam Clerk.
Our first item of the evening is a special recognition for UNLITTER, Mural, and Recognition 2022.
Okay, thank you. So, so many great things that happen start with just a little tiny nudge, right? In fact, there's an economist won a whole Nobel Prize based on that theory. But what seems like forever ago in the midst of COVID, I got an email from a really awesome group of people and led by Shannon, right? They had this idea to bring awareness to our community concerning environmental issues and especially plastic waste, and asked if they could work with the city on this project that they had. So I said, it sounds great. Let's see, how we can help and be partners in this. And tonight is the culmination of all of those efforts and activities. And so in just a moment, I'm going to invite Carissa up here, who was the city sort of liaison and sort of champion of this project. But I do want to encourage all of you that are here or that might be watching they're going to be doing some tabling a little bit later, so you can learn more about their organization and efforts if you want to go out and check that out. And also, I'm sure they will share their website and social media information if you want to follow up and learn more and get involved, because it's a great group for a really important cause. And I think you're going to be really excited when you see the result of all of their work. So with that, Carissa, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what we're about to look at?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Carissa Raskin, Assistant Director of Strategy, Planning, and Innovation. So what you have before you, I have not seen, no one has seen yet, except for the fabulous group behind you. They have worked for a very long time, months and months, collecting thousands upon thousands of bottle caps from our community in efforts to support the Zero Waste Initiative and really bring awareness to what the city is striving to do together with our community. It is an excellent depiction in my mind of true collaboration and how we are in City Hall working together with our community to bring about what our mutual goals are. And I certainly didn't have very much to do with it at all. I will recognize Shannon Sawtell, who is the director of UNLITTER, which is a local nonprofit organization that worked very hard to convene all of the wonderful people and more that you see behind me to put together a mural which will be hung in City Hall outside of these doors above our kiosk. It will be hung there by our facilities team and remain there for several months, and we're just extremely grateful and excited. I'm so excited to see it. So, Shannon, do you want to come up and say anything, and then maybe have the unveiling take place? Okay.
While Shannon's coming up, we do have rules in our chambers for no cheers or jeers, so we maintain a civil environment, but we do have one exception. When we do proclamations and recognitions. And so there will be an appropriate time where we can all voice our support and excitement over this project. So Shannon, please tell us a little bit more.
Hello, fantastic to meet you. My name is Shannon Sawtell. I'm the director of UNLITTER here at the University of Florida. For those of you who haven't heard of our organization, we are a nonprofit that started here in 2016, right out of UF, believe it or not, and we have the founder here today. She came all the way from Israel, so we were very excited to have her.
Right.
Another thing about this mural, we collected all of the caps from the Gainesville community. one thing we wanted to bring attention to is that although we have so many fantastic initiatives like the zero waste ordinance, the plastic ordinances, there is still so much work to be done specifically with recycling here in America in general. So plastic water bottle caps are not recyclable in the Alachua County or in most places here in Florida. So in order to get the most amount of colors and design options as possible, we collected 75,000 caps for about a year and a half. So believe it or not, probably some people on this live stream donated caps at some point, some way or another, and I'm very excited to show it to you all. The mural is a depiction of a sunset at Paynes Prairie, so we wanted to keep it really in the community here, but we are very excited. Our nonprofit has spread rapidly throughout the United States, and being our home here in Gainesville, it's very exciting to be here. So without further ado, I'm going to reveal this is the first time anyone outside of UNLITTER has seen it, so I hope you all really love it.
And why don't you let us just, we want to see it too, so let us just come around there. Wave your arms and make some noise. We'll be outside till 7 if you want to hear more about our organization. Our socials are at UNLITTER-UF and at UNLITTER. So UNLITTER-UF. You can find our Instagram, website, and everything like that. And if we can provide any other information, please come speak to me after. We would awesome love to answer questions. And I know all of you heard her. All of you at home, you'll have to say that again for people at home.
Sorry, I forgot about the microphone. Yeah. Our nonprofit has a website, unlitter.org, UNLITTER.org. You can also find us on our social media pages at UNLITTER-UF. So Instagram and any of that. We have a bunch of upcoming events in addition to cleanups and Unlitter Your Mind yoga events, so please definitely check those out. Open to non-students as well, of course.
Excellent. And so I have this certificate to present to the organization UNLITTER, and it reads, for your efforts to improve environmental sustainability and stewardship via neighborhood engagement in the city of Gainesville, Florida, we have our official seal. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well done.
We have time for a team photo.
Yes. Come on up, yeah.
Stand up.
Yes, yeah.
That's the only way I'm going to be talking.
Well, maybe.
This is
Come on in.
awesome.
Come on in, yes.
This is awesome.
Like the paparazzi.
Don't stop smiling.
Ever. Don't ever stop smiling.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
so much.
Awesome. Great job. Great job. And as Shannon said, or Chris, I forget, but it'll be outside in the lobby of City Hall here for some time. And so please stop down and check it out. And please go follow UNLITTER so you can learn more about their efforts. We're just going to pause for a second for everybody to clear out. Yeah.
Next.
Incidental music. Thank you. So they turned out like 40 people for. We can get that for like housing. Look, he's left. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We just appreciate it. Come back anytime. You can stay for the rest of the meeting. I always remind people they're welcome to stay for the other items, but they always leave. Okay, Madam Clerk, our next item, please.
Our next item is early public comment, and we have Alex Posa signed up.
Okay, welcome.
All right, thanks. I'm Alex Posen. I'm speaking on the parking ordinance. When we speak of free things, there's an implicit understanding that society will bear these costs, generally through taxes. Many of these things are of great benefit to society. Free healthcare, free education, free lunches for school children. Parking, however, has a great cost to society. It is simply a terrible use of land. Acres of asphalt are heat islands, and frankly unpleasant to look at. Free parking encourages driving instead of biking or walking, and that is not what any government that is at all serious about climate change should do. Estimates vary, but there's likely enough parking in America to cover the entire state of New Jersey. While those who can afford to and are able to drive get a free place to put their private goods, those who can't are forced to subsidize them. A parking space is surprisingly not cheap to build. The average surface space costs a shocking $5,000 to $10,000 to build, and somebody has to eat those costs, and it's those who don't drive. This disproportionately falls on the poor and disabled. 40% of American adults with a disability don't drive at all, compared to 10% of those without them. Vast parking lots are cruel to non-drivers with physical disabilities. Forcing people with mobility issues to walk or roll through acres of hot asphalt using energy that they might not have, staring at the rows of painted lines that increase the cost of goods at the store is just wrong. The big secret of city planning is that parking minimums are just made up. There's no rhyme or reason to any of the numbers. Can anyone honestly tell me why in Gainesville, why hotels and motels require 5 spaces plus 1 space for each guest room plus 75% required spaces for restaurants, retail outlets, and other accessory uses? Author of The High Cost of Free Parking, Donald Shoup, has compared the practice of deciding what minimums should be to bloodletting. But at least that pseudoscience killed only the patient rather than the entire earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, anybody else? Okay. Up next then, our next item.
Our next item is resolution, Commissioner Reina Saco, non-binding resolution to enact H.R. 1976, Medicare for All Act of 2021, with a recommendation that the commission approve the resolution.
Hey, Commissioner Saco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Omi. So this came about from multiple years of conversation at this point with our friends at the Alachua County Labor Coalition. We have some of them with us today who will give a little more background about the act and why it's so important. But really one of the things that inspired me, and I shared with Candy and Gaby earlier, is when I had to use the ER a couple weeks ago, I looked up if my insurance would cover it. I was facing potential anaphylactic shock, and I had to stop to look at my insurance booklet. There are, basic standards of human care that is a right for every person. And at this point, we are not really meeting that. And that is a great shame. But hopefully, Congress can see this and see that this commission supports it, that the city of Gainesville supports it, maybe that other cities support it, and finally, walk it the last few steps it needs to go. But with that, I will let Candy and Gaby tell us a bit more.
Thank you so much. My name is Candy Birch, and this is Gaby Gross. Both of us are Gainesville residents. We are both members of Medicare for All Florida and the Alachua County Labor Coalition. We've been working together since May to gain support for this resolution, as Gaby will discuss in a few minutes. And I thank you so much for allowing us to come and talk about this important issue, discuss the Medicare for All resolution. It calls for our national legislators to pass a national Medicare for All Act, especially, which is called H.R. 1976. Gaby will talk about the bill itself, and then I will discuss how residents in the United States and here in Gainesville would benefit from the passage.
Thank you. Oh, gentlemen, could we get a quick technological fix up here? One sec. We're just going to fix the microphone real quick.
Okay.
So we're going to put the first.
It's right there. It's on. Yeah. It should be.
What about this one?
The little thingamabobber fell off. I think that's a technical
Did I
term.
do something? That's fine. Okay.
Okay,
You want that one? You don't need it.
No, I mean, it's good. Okay.
Okay, so 60% of residents support Medicare for all. And I've been collecting signatures, and hardly anybody refused me. Everybody was willing to sign without even asking many questions. We got about 370 in all in a short space of time. That was very easy to do. So what's in this act is health care for all residents. So when you come into the world, from the time you come into the world until the time you leave it, you will be covered. And there will be no cost to you, although, of course, the cost of running it. And what is covered is everything that we think of as health care. In addition to these basic ones up there, there's also reproductive services, including abortion, if that becomes legal, prescription drugs, Medicare, medical devices, and these will all be free at the point of service. And sorry, I can't see. Sorry. So it will be much cheaper, much less expensive than current Medicare because waste will be eliminated. There will be just one provider, one payer, single payer, and there will not be a zillion insurance companies who each have their different procedures and make different requirements of their doctors and have groups, so you have to pay more if you go into another group. There will be none of that. The financing will be all from taxation. And that scares some people. They don't want to pay more taxes. But in fact, only 95% of people will pay less in taxes than they currently do in premiums and other out-of-pocket expenses. And because administrative costs are usually resulting in laying off people, there's going to be a provision for insurance, a provision for insurance workers who are displaced. So for 5 years, there will be as a fund for displaced insurance workers. So that's the most important issue. There's lots of others, like that you can choose your own doctor. There'll be no discrimination, but these are the essential facts of H.R. 1976.
Thank you.
I hope you appreciate the fact that the two of us are we've been working together without actually being in the room together a lot of this, so I'm going to really try very hard to go forward in a very fast way. There's just, the resolution that you saw has a bunch of whereases and whereases and whereases and stuff like that, and in just 10 minutes, I don't know if I can get through it all, but I'm just going to give you the highlights of it because it's so important to us. So, here we go. One of the things about the most convincing arguments of Medicare for All are listed right here on this slide. Study after study has documented that healthcare in the United States is the most expensive among peer countries. The United States spends 16% of its gross domestic product on healthcare, for goodness sake. Peer nations like Canada, Great Britain, France, Germany, Switzerland, they spend between 9 and 12. The United States spends 16% of its GDP. According to the Kaiser Health Foundation, 2 in 5 adults enrolled in employer-provided health coverage reported difficulty affording their own health care or their insurance costs. And for all that money being spent, the United States has a lower life expectancy. At 77 years in the United States, we are last among the G7 countries where life expectancies are in the 80s. In addition, the United States has, and this is heartbreaking, the highest chronic disease burden, a problem that early accessible health care could help eliminate. And finally, the most heartbreaking of all is the infant mortality here in the United States, where we have 5.4 deaths per 1,000 live births. I don't know. Again, we're last in the G7 countries. So we know that families are suffering. I think Reina actually kind of brought that up. Families are bearing the burden of all of this. What is the percentage of your income that goes to health insurance? Is it over 10%? Could you afford a catastrophic disease, a diagnosis? Would you have to rely on your credit card or your family to afford health care? I'm not sure about that. So here's the rub. The rub is that ordinary families are struggling, but healthcare companies are experiencing record profits. I am shocked to learn that the 5 highest earners in the Fortune 500 are healthcare companies, CVS and United Health. Sure, the shareholders are happy about that. They're in the top 5 of the Fortune 500, but not so much those who are shouldering crushing medical expenses. So did you know that a high percentage of gains that are routinely denied or upheld are upheld after appeal? Counting on people to accept the first denial is just another way that companies boost their profits. So, we just know that Medicare is a good way to take care of that. As you might notice, Gaby and I are currently very grateful recipients of Medicare. We have routine and other necessary health care delivered by doctors that we pick with no out-of-pocket expense. Every American deserves that savings, and Medicare for All does that at a lower cost. So many Gainesvillians, I guess that's how you say it, would benefit from Medicare for All. The poor, 30% in Gainesville. People of color, 35% in Gainesville. The uninsured, that number 23,000 is really for Alachua County, so that means 12,000 people would benefit from Medicare for All in Gainesville. Young people like those kids that just left, and businesses would no longer have to worry about health care plan selection, educating their workers, administrating all of that stuff. So all of that money could go to better wages and better working conditions. So the benefits are clear. There's no doubt about it. Workers can seek employment wherever they want to go because they don't have to worry about losing their health insurance. People don't have to delay their health care because of the cost. That statistic that's on that slide that says 16% of diabetics either reduce or forego their diabetic insulin is just astounding to me, and it's just wrong. Medical debt and bankruptcy would go away. In the past 5 years, half of these people say that they have gone into debt because of medical and dental bills. Remember, 95% of us would pay less than they are paying now when you add up the co-pays, the premiums, and the deductibles. So, The Congressional Budget Office says this is what could happen: higher wages, increased household disposable income, improved worker health and longevity, and lower administrative waste. So almost at the end. Can you read all of that? So all of these cities have adopted Medicare for All resolutions since 2018, just 5 years. There are 100 of them, over 100 of them. And just this month, Atlanta, Georgia just adopted a Medicare for All resolution. Tampa, St. Petersburg, Key West, and Florida have adopted the Medicare for All resolution. Why? Because circumstances here in the United States have reached crisis proportions. We must let our national leaders know that they need to gather up the political will, like you are right now, to insist that everyone in America has access to high quality health care, expanding that quality of health care to all residents, cradle to grave, is just as powerful a public good as education and public safety. So we hope that you will help us join in this important conversation and support the passage of this Medicare resolution. Our children, our grandchildren, the people of Gainesville and America, they really deserve it. And I thank you so much for giving us this time. So.
All right, thank you so much both for being with us and sharing all of that. Commissioner Saco, turn back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Commission approve the non-binding resolution to enact H.R. 1976, Medicare for All Act of 2021. There's no actual number on it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adopt the proposed resolution. Madam Clerk, do you have anybody signed up for this? Okay. Then we'll move back to commission. This is a non-binding resolution, so we'll just go to a voice vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, you two, and everybody else. Thanks for sharing it with us and bringing it to us. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Our next item is the first budget amendment to the fiscal year 2023 General Government Financial and Operating Plan Budget, Resolution Number 2022-622, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Gainesville, Florida, relating to its general government budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, amending Resolution Number 2022-265 by making certain adjustments to the General Government Financial and Operating Plan budget and providing an immediate effective date.
Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first amendment to the FY 2023 budget, and it reflects the start of the carry-forward process for encumbrances and expenditures previously approved by the Commission in prior fiscal years, which were not completed in the FY 2022, and are needed in the FY 2023 budget, which was approved by the Commission on September of 22nd. Specifically, this amendment carries forward salary contingency in the general fund, projects and programs in the special revenue fund, grant appropriations, and capital projects. These appropriations are needed so that departments can continue to implement projects funded by capital fund, grants, and other restricted revenue sources from prior fiscal years. These are preliminary estimates, and we will continue to process the financial closing of fiscal 2022 as we move forward. There will be other carry-forward adjustments that will be needed, and those will be presented to the City Commission at the appropriate time. In addition to this budget amendment, it also includes a housekeeping item to update our general ledger and workday mapping for the Department of Juvenile Justice and Community Support programs as approved by the City Commission at the second public budget hearing for fiscal 2023 on September 22nd, 2022. And Ms. Susan Boyd is here as well to answer any additional questions that the Commission may have on this item.
Okay, thank you, Madam Manager. Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move Resolution 2022-622.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the proposed budget amendment resolution. Any members of the public? Okay, then this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Chestnut. Aye. Commissioner Hayes Santos. Aye. Commissioner Saco.
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward. Aye. Commissioner Duncan Walker. Aye. And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, next item, please.
Next item is a business discussion. V1, adoption of the 2022 Incentives and Recommendations Report. With the recommendation that the Commission accept AHAC's 2022 Incentives and Recommendations Report, approve the submittal of AHAC's 2022 Incentives and Recommendations Report to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation by December 31, and authorize the city manager or designee to execute all necessary documents required for the submittal of the AHAC's 2022 incentives and recommendations report, subject to approval by the city attorney as to form and legality.
Okay, Madam Manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Mr. John Wachtell is here from Housing and Community Development to introduce the item.
Mr. Rocktel, good to see you.
Thank you.
The AHAC chair.
My name's John Wachtell, as you know. I'm with the city's Housing and Community Development Division. I'm here with Jamie Bell, who's the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, which we call AHAC for short. And today we want to talk about the Incentives and Recommendations Report, or the IRR for short. Now, this is important because in order to receive SHIP funds, which is the state Housing Initiative Partnership Program, in order to receive these funds, which are kind of our major funding source for affordable housing in the state of Florida, the state requires the city to submit an IRR. And basically, it's a review of local regulations and incentives that impact the cost of building housing. The IRR is developed by AHAC and includes their recommendations to the City Commission. So just for a quick overview on what the SHIP program is, it's basically a product of the legislature. It's a state program. It's in the legislation in Chapter 420. It's a state program and it's a funding source. And one of the positives about this particular funding source is collections increase when housing prices increase. So as the need grows, the funding source grows. Now, the state requires that local governments do a couple of tasks to get the funding. We have to do an annual report about what we did with the money and that kind of thing. We do that every year. We have to do a local housing assistance plan that describes our programs and our budgets and our predicted funding and the like. And that's a 3-year cycle. The next one is going to come up at the beginning of next year. You have to have an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee has to produce the IRR and present it to the City Commission, and the City Commission has to accept it and send it to the state in order to receive the funding. Y'all are probably pretty familiar with what our program is, but in case anyone isn't, just quickly, we do home repair, a lot of home repair. There's a lot of benefits to doing that. We do down payment assistance to help folks move from renting into home ownership. We do some mortgage foreclosure intervention. In case someone misses a payment somewhere along the line, they don't have to lose their house. And we do a lot of homeowner and home buyer counseling. So we do a lot of things. There's a lot of other things that the city does with this funding, but that's just some of them. So the Incentives and Recommendations Report, what does that have to have? So except for the first two incentives, they have to review 11 incentives that impact the cost of providing affordable housing. They're called out in the statute. They focus on the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan. What AHAC does is for all these incentives, they ask some questions like, does the city provide these incentives for affordable housing? And do city regulations unnecessarily increase the cost of housing? They can also recommend other strategies, which they've done. And the city, except for the first two recommendations, which the city has to implement, and we do, the city is not required to implement all the recommendations in the report. They're required to accept the report and send it on. We know that you'll consider them, and in the past you have implemented many of the recommendations. So this is the list of the 11 recommendations that the city or the AHAC is required to review. We've done that. And you can read that yourselves. We don't have to go over each one unless you want to. But to actually present the recommendations that are in the IRR, we're going to have our chair, Jamie Bell, present that part to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rocktel. Ms. Bell, welcome.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon or good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Jamie Bell. I'm a professional engineer and the chair of your AHAC. I also want to take a second to just thank Commissioners Chestnut and Saco for getting us on the evening portion of the agenda. I do work full time, but I really wanted to be here, so thank you very much. As John said, there are 11 items we're required to review, and in lieu of going through each of those, we just wanted to highlight the 5 main points that came out of it from our perspective. To the extent practical, we want to link these incentives to the provision of actually providing affordable housing. It sounds like a no-brainer, but sometimes it's assumed that those savings are passed along to tenants and homebuyers, and they are not. So we'd like to directly link those incentives to actual affordable housing in the community. We would really like to see increased engagement with the community. We do host public workshops throughout the year, and there is some advertising that goes on, but generally speaking, you can always do more. And so, as you can see, we'd like to meet the people where they are, do more outreach to churches, community centers, local groups, and just really try our best to connect people more directly with those affordable housing opportunities. And we in the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, we would like to be more included. As you know, we submitted a letter to the Commission referencing inclusionary versus exclusionary zoning. And while we might be a little bit divided within the committee about our individual ideas and opinions, as a whole, we'd like the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee to be included in discussions relating to affordable housing. We have folks who work in the real estate area. We have folks who work in local churches and community organizers. And we think our people are really in tune with what the community needs are and where those needs need to be taken care of. And so we just ask that we be more included with affordable housing discussions in the future, and that's already being done with some of the meetings that are happening next month. So thank you for that. Tying into the increased engagement with the community is also increased education within the community about the development process. There appears to be a lot of confusion sometimes about how these new developments are approved, where they go, and why. And so we think there would just be a benefit to generally more education and outreach to help people better understand zoning, land development regulations, the type of variances we offer to incentivize affordable housing, things like that. We'd like to continue to focus on home rehabilitation and weatherization. We do have that home repair program that SHIP funding can be used for, but it's woefully underutilized. And it's been brought to our attention that part of that relates to the availability of contractors who are available to or are willing to accept the funding available to do those jobs. And so we would like the Commission to consider finding ways to connect vendors to the homeowners who are looking to utilize our programs, finding ways to bring more vendors onto the approved list, or reach out to maybe non-traditional resources such as the UF and Santa Fe building schools, other organizations that maybe are nonprofits but will do these home repairs through the same financial mechanism. And so really just more focus not just on home purchasing but home repairs so that affordable housing remains affordable housing where it is and where it's needed. And then last but not least, we want to continue to focus on preserving the unique qualities of the specific neighborhoods around Gainesville. I'm sure you're very familiar with some of the drama around some developments and where they're happening and the type of density that they're bringing. And we are just asking the Commission to perhaps embark on a study focused on anti-gentrification and anti-displacement measures. So we understand the need for growth throughout the city, and that sometimes it's easier to put new developments in some places than others, but it's very important that we maintain the culture and the aesthetics of the neighborhoods that these developments are going into, and we want to focus on preserving, again, those unique qualities of those neighborhoods. And you know, that's part of what the Development Review Board does with some of the variance reviews. We look on that committee as well, and we look at ensuring that variances kind of match the neighborhood and the community that they're in, and we want larger affordable housing developments to be focused on the same thing. So those are the 5 big takeaways from the Incentives and Recommendations report. A lot of it is similar things that are repeated from year to year. But generally speaking, I think our committee, these are some of the most committed folks that I've seen on the committee in my years being on it, and they're really passionate about affordable housing. I know the commissioners who've sat in with us have seen that and the sometimes heated discussions we get into, and even if we don't agree, I think those discussions are really important. And like I said, because these folks are in the community talking to the folks who have these affordable housing needs and are just kind of deeply aware of what those problems are. We would like to be part of the solution as well and to be brought into the discussion at large more. So I think, is that my last slide? Just those guys? One more. Just kidding. So the recommendation, this is what you actually care about in the end. I have to read it verbatim? I'll read it verbatim. The AHAC recommends that the City Commission, 1, accept the incentives and recommendations report, 2, approve the submittal of the IRR to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation by December 31st of this year, and 3, authorize the city manager or designee to execute all necessary documents required for the submittal of the IRR, subject to approval by the city attorney as to form and legality.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Bell, and thank you for your leadership and participation on AHAC. It's very much an important job, and we do appreciate all the input that y'all have given. Commissioner Saco.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bell. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
It's always a joy to join AHAC when I'm able. I do appreciate that you brought up those recommendations that the committee worked on, apart from the generic part of the report that we need. And as we had in some of our discussions, there are some things that we are working on and taking baby steps towards. But I know Corey has also joined us in those meetings. Thank you. And he's heard very clearly what y'all are looking for, and I think he's heard what this commission's looking for. And I don't think the two are out of sync. So I hope that staff is taking those to heart. And with that, I will move staff's recommendation to accept the incentives, to approve the submittal of incentives and recommendations report, and to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Okay, a motion and a second that we approve the recommendation. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody sign up to speak to this item?
Yes, we do. Tana Silva.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy about this today, that Jamie and everyone gets a chance to talk to you about what they're doing. And I've sat in on a few of the committee meetings, and I'm just so impressed with, the discussion, the level of discussion, as Jamie said. Sometimes they have differences of opinion, but, everybody's coming from different perspectives. And I think it's a wonderful vehicle for bringing the whole community into discussions about housing and the various neighborhoods. I love their 5 main points that they're bringing up, and I think this goes along a lot with what Commissioner Duncan Walker started out with, was equitable development, so that everyone benefits from the distribution of the benefits of growth in this city, and it doesn't just get sucked up to the top by concentrated ownership. I love that they're focusing on attention to homeownership and housing rehabilitation. Those were very key points in 2018 and 2019 from the Florida Housing Coalition and Schimberg Center as key, urgent priorities for housing in Gainesville were protection of the existing housing stock that's naturally affordable, and they had maps and all of that. Including protection of single-family houses as relatively affordable to compared to county and state and so forth. Yeah, you can look confused, but I can show you, Adrian. Anyway, I think it's maybe now that the mayor's main priority was concluded today, capped off really in a vote a few hours ago, then I think it's time to return to the some of the recommendations from years past, to focus less on zoning and more on what is practical. And I think this committee is a wonderful place, and especially with Commissioners Chestnut and Saco, and in the future other commissioners, to be on board as a sort of standing committee for housing in the city, and a place where the community and the commission can all get together and talk through them about what really is needed. They had a wonderful guest there last time from the school board who raised the question of, really all of us sitting around here, we have access to housing, and an important question to ask is, of those who are seeking housing, is what do you need? And those who are seeking better housing, what do you need? Those who seek better, more affordable housing, what do you need? and let the conversations come more from the ground up rather than from the top down. But in so many ways, I just think that, this is a place to bring in some bigger world factors like, foreclosures and interest and insurance and so forth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to those who presented on this very, very important topic. I had a question that I think might best be posed to the city manager, because I heard the chair of the committee asking for more opportunities to be brought to the table, and I certainly don't want to usurp or overstep what you all have already put into place. But we have recently pulled together the working group, the inter-county or interagency affordable housing working group. And it is another opportunity it's really an opportunity for both sides of the street to get together and talk about what it is that we are doing in the affordable housing space. That was based on some of the more challenging conversations about housing, where it goes, who does it, why, et cetera. But I wonder, Interim Manager Curry, if there may be a place at the table. And like I said, I know this is a new group. I know that you all are charting the path forward and who's going to be a part of it. But if at all possible, and if it is appropriate, perhaps there might be a seat at the table for at least one member of this group to join that conversation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
the group that we have assembled is really a staff working group.
Okay.
It's just staff working back and forth between the city and the county. And it's staff. I mean, I guess I can just put a period at that.
You can put a period at that, but I think that it certainly is never lost on me when I hear anyone asking about opportunities to be brought to the table or have their voices heard. So I think there will be future opportunities to make sure that happens. But thank you so much for the incredible work that you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank you. I think that having a framework for going forward is going to be a really good idea. And we need a lot of people supporting affordable housing. We have projects come up before us that are 100% affordable housing, projects that come before us that are 10%, 5%, we're talking in some cases hundreds of units, and we see very few people come out to support it. So we really need folks to come out and support affordable housing when it's ready to go, because oftentimes when we get to that point is when the most opposition shows up. So we really, really could use something like this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, thanks for the report. Thanks for all the work that went into the report. We see the report, right? We don't see like the dozens and dozens and dozens of hours that go into it. So please share with your committee our appreciation for all of that. And I look forward to following all of this as it progresses from afar. With that, Madam Clerk, we'll move to I think this is just a voice vote, right? Yeah. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The report's accepted. All right, thank you all. Madam Clerk, next item.
Our next item is the first reading of ordinance number 211262, Land Development Code Amendments to Parking Regulations and Minimums, an ordinance of the City of Gainesville, Florida, amending Section 30-7.5 and Section 30-7.6 of the Land Development Code to eliminate parking minimums and introduce language for structured parking requirements and mid-street parking for loading and unloading in suburban and urban zoning districts, providing directions to the codifier, providing a severability clause or repealing clause, and an effective date.
Mr. Castillo, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Mayor. For the record, my name is Juan Castillo. I'm a planner with the Department of Sustainable Development. And the item that I bring before you this evening is a request for amending our current parking regulations in order to eliminate parking minimum requirements, add consequently language to create parking maximums, allow for mid-street parking, as well as allow or create regulations for the provisions of structured parking. So the item that is before you is one of the items that was identified in the 2019 Land Development Code Change joint meeting, which is a joint meeting that you had with the City Plan Board, again, back in 2019. There's a whole list of items that were identified on that meeting. This is number 14 of that list. Opposite direction. So, as you're aware, parking minimums are regulations that, in essence, require developments to provide a minimum set of off-street parking. And the idea behind that is that this will ensure that any impacts associated with the needs of a development for parking would be satisfied with the requirement. Unfortunately, as several studies and reviews have noted, there's a lot of
Sorry, Amber Alert, I think.
worries.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of adverse impacts associated with parking minimums. First of all, they encourage an excess of off-street parking where a developer may be forced to provide more off-street parking than they are actually needing. They also create urban spaces that are that have low productive value while having high infrastructure costs. So in other words, they don't contribute as much as it's required to maintain those facilities, their facilities. As well as they also provide a hostile pedestrian environment. If you can imagine, and that's probably most of us here in Gainesville have done, we have had to traverse almost empty parking spaces in order to get to our destination, the business, and we have to basically frog jump around cars that are trying to almost kill us. No, that's an exaggeration. Strike that from the record.
Too late.
So along those lines, you have cost burdens to small businesses that are required to provide parkings that they may or may not need, parking spaces that is. They increase impervious surfaces, which produces a situation with stormwater, as well as they increase the heat sink effect, where heat is maintained or captured by impervious surfaces and then released into the air, if you will, creating for a hotter urban environment. So several municipalities have identified these adverse impacts and have taken steps to either drastically reduce or remove parking minimum requirements. Among them, you have here in Florida, you have places like Fort Lauderdale and Sarasota. Now, these places have eliminated parking requirements within their city center. We will be the first, as far as I know so far, first place here in Florida that has eliminated them completely in the entirety of the city. Now, currently in the city of Gainesville, we have our transit zones, which do have some minimum parking that are not required. So, for example, non-residential uses in transit zones don't require parking minimums. Residential uses up to U8 don't require parking minimums, but then from U7 on do. We also have certain uses that have parking minimum requirements associated with them. Each use based on different factors have different sets of parking requirements. Now, it's important to note that there is no adopted methodology as to how to determine what these minimum parking requirements are, and some of these numbers have been accused of being somewhat arbitrary, which is pretty much this research that we found as well. So take that as is. But the proposal before you is to eliminate entirely the parking minimum requirements within transit zones and to eliminate parking minimum requirements within our use tables. Instead, provide parking maximum requirements. And that's important because this would mitigate the potential for developments to come in and to provide excess parking that they may not need, or we don't need for that matter. Now, in the event that a development does need more parking than our parking maximums, if you will, the code as it's currently written does provide some flexibility in that situation. We can amend administratively parking allowances up to 10 parking spaces or 10% of the parking spaces being provided, whichever one is greater, as long as the developer shows us that they need those parking spaces. So they just have to provide some justification for that. If they need more than those parking spaces allotment, then the proposal is to add language that would require the developer to provide a full parking study that would show their market, their market analysis as to why they would need so much parking. And there's a list of everything that parking study will have to demonstrate, such as the minimal impact to surrounding areas. They will have to demonstrate that the parking is appropriate with the area. They will have to demonstrate that the street liveliness is not going to be effective excessively, etc. This is also in your backup. And that leads me to structured parking. So in the event that the developer shows that they need more than, 200 or more parking spaces, or if they just want that, we are proposing to add language that would require developers to provide structured parking in that event. So if a developer or a business decides that they need 200 parking spaces or more, they will be required to provide structured parking. And our code currently does not have a limit on how much parking spaces can be put in a structured parking, as long as the parking is structured, elevated, etc. So we would allow them to go down that route in order to get their over 200 parking spaces. And the reason why we came up with 200, we took a short snapshot of some of our current businesses here in Gainesville, some of the stronger ones, if you will, such as Whole Foods, Publix, Lowe's. And we noticed that on average, for the most part, they tend to lie around the 200 space mark as far as how many parkings they provide. And when we looked at their usage, we noticed that consistently they do not maximize their parking space use. For example, you have like Ray Bonefish and Grill, which currently has around a 17% parking rate use. Publix has 38%. And you got to look at Walmart, which is probably the one that currently has the most usage from the people from the businesses that we looked at. But again, they're at 66%. Lowe's by 13th is at 20%, etc. Of course, you have your outliners, but for the most part, most of the parking that these big box retailers are providing are not being used to the full extent that they can be. And this is basically what that looks like. You have Aldi over here, which again is not using most of the parking spaces, but Sam's at Butler, Whole Foods, etc. And this is, as you walk around or drive around Gainesville, this is actually a common sight. Aerial views, you got Lowe's, again, most of the parking spaces are not being used. And of course, this is not taking into account Christmas or other type of high holidays. This is mainly looking at what would be more consistent. Burlington's, Aldi's over at Butler Plaza, Whole Foods. Target has, looking at it from an aerial view, has probably more of the use of their parking spot. But again, you see a lot of empty parking spaces back here, which is also problematic because somebody has to transverse all of that in order to get to the business. Okay. So moving on, another part of the proposal before you is to introduce language that would allow for mid-street parking within an urbanized area. Currently, the city of Gainesville does allow for mid-street parking in the downtown area. We are proposing to extend that over to the Transect zone / urbanized area. And basically, this is to allow for infill development, flexibility. So when their site restrains them from providing loading parking space within their site, again, due to size limitations and just the overall compactness of an urbanized area, this would give them the ability to park out in the middle of the street in order to make their deliveries and then leave the premises. There are languages that were being proposed that would provide direction as to when staff would allow for mid-street parking to occur, which involves looking at the type of streets that are adjacent to the development, the times of deliveries, the intensity of use, the traffic associated with the area, and any other site constraints. And further language goes on to clarify what we would consider or what that middle of the street parking actually looks like, the type of vehicle that can park there, how long they can park there, and the association that the vehicle has with the business or the development that is being served. But the full language is on your back in the backup. And with that, I apologize for the long presentation, but that concludes it. And I'm here and available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to move ordinance 211262 on first reading by title only.
Motion and a second. We had Commissioner Ariola, but we'll come back around to him. In fact, if you don't mind pushing this button once I turn it off, as I remember. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have an idea, or do we have a record of the number of accidents that may have been caused by the mid-street parking?
I apologize, I did not look at that data. But I can assure you, if that's available, I can get that to you.
Yeah. Okay. It's just always been a real irritant to me.
Chief, did you hear that request? Number of accidents that have been attributed to mid-block parking, if we can get that before second reading. Just a memo to the full commission would be great. Go ahead.
Mid-block loading zones, right? Not parking.
Mid-block loading.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Castillo can explain what he said. Yeah. Yeah, right. Just like we see out here, right? I mean, trucks parking in the middle of the street for loading and unloading.
Right, so it would just be used for loading purposes.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll if you just give that back to the commission in a memo. What do you want that for? Like last 5 years? Be good. 5 years. All right. Thank you. Was that it, Commissioner Chestnut? Okay. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Chestnut, for asking that question. That's of concern for me as well. I wanted to ask about the future of cars and how parking spaces or this proposal is taking into consideration any EV charging. What are the thoughts on that? I don't know a whole lot about that, and I'm just curious as to what is required in terms of that. I know a lot of folks are making purchases now that's going to require the usage of charging stations at different locations, and parking areas like the ones that you showed us just a few moments ago are being used in that way. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So for EV charges, this study did not look at that. We were primarily concerned with the provisions of excess parking and the mitigation of areas that are predominantly not being used on a consistent basis. Current EV charges, from what I've seen, have taken place within areas that have been consistently used in parking. But again, with this, we did not look at EV stations as part of this proposal. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
It did, that you didn't look at it. But I think that is something that's important, because if there is surplus space that could be used in that regard, I would be interested in seeing how much space would be needed by anybody who would need to charge their car while they were parked at Target or anywhere else. So I don't know, did I see you stepping forward maybe to speak to that?
Mr. Ellison, do you have some context?
Okay.
Just to piggyback on and to some effect answer your question, for what is being proposed, it was not directly addressed or spoken to, but some things that we are doing inside the department is trying to streamline some of our review processes to make that a little bit easier. So for example, today, if some developer comes in and wants to add EV charging stations to existing parking lots, a few months ago, it was not immediately clear which one of our review processes that would fall into, whether it would be a simple building permit or through a full site plan review. What we've done is modified our review processes to put that in a place that gets us what we need, but also keeps it streamlined so that those can be added in a more efficient way. Also, for some sites, in particular the Target that you saw earlier, we have seen that they wanted to modify or revamp their parking lot to include that EV charging up close to the building facade. And we have modified a lot of our processes, again, to incorporate that and encourage that and streamline that as much as we can.
Okay, so you don't foresee this proposal in any way inhibiting that ability to provide EV charging?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, and I can add, because I've read quite a bit on this, and I see Mr. Cunningham as well. What this is quickly becoming, because especially with the car companies saying, we're going to transition all of our new production over to full EV, they really see that process happening quickly. It's becoming a non-price competitive effort on the part of retailers. In other words, we want to attract these EV drivers, and so we're going to put in the charging stations in existing parking spaces to get them to come to our place because they know they can come and plug in their car for free, and we know nothing's free, but we're going to pay the electricity for you to come shop at Target or Whole Foods or Publix or whatever. And so, as I start, looking more closely at these parking lots of these retail places, you're seeing more and more of these EV stations popping up because they want to get the person to come park at their thing. So we're just, what we're going to see over the next 5 years is a lot of parking spaces being reserved for EV only. And they're just going to use, the city's not going to have to pay for that. Now, what we would like to do is charge for that. We want that's a new customer base for GRU that we don't currently have. But what's great about it for us, we don't have to provide the infrastructure. The owners of the property will do that, and we just have to provide the access, basically, the electrical access. So it's actually really promising, the trend that's happening right now. Thank you. You want to hear that,
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, like you kind of hit on it. I think from a GRU perspective, our Office of Sustainability is looking at EVs right now and grants that are out there and all of that to see if it makes sense for us to really kind of explore the business of actually putting in chargers. But whether we do that or not, as the mayor kind of articulated, the revenue from that and the electricity is going to come from GRU. And so, but we're looking at that market and seeing what that's going to look like, and as we move forward. I will also just reinforce something else the mayor said is that we're really projecting, sales in the future going up from the EV charging if the market goes in the direction that everybody thinks it is, and a lot of our vehicles are changed to electric vehicles. So we're tracking that. Our Office of Sustainability is trying to figure out if there's funding sources for us to get into the specifically building chargers. I don't know if that's the case. I would think probably not, but we will make sure the infrastructure is there so that they have access when chargers are constructed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that was something I wanted to talk about as well, and y'all have covered most of my points on it. I am not 100% certain that the market is going to meet the need because the market has a way of missing the mark and then asking why government didn't force them to do it after they've already built something. So I'm a little dubious that the market will just magically make it happen, particularly regarding apartments. I'm less concerned about how people or whether people will charge their cars where they go shopping than I am them wanting to charge their cars at home. I may not be a typical EV potential consumer, but in my thoughts on looking for EVs, I want to make sure I can charge it at home overnight. So it's ready to go and I don't have to worry about finding a place to charge. So I'm a little dubious about it, but I will say that since we're only talking about eliminating the parking minimums in Transect zones and not everywhere that something could be built, correct?
So this will be applicable everywhere.
Okay, all right. So here's a concern that I had. This is where I got off track. The slide that lists the stores and the percentage of usage of parking spaces. We looked at the Oaks Mall on a Sunday before the mall hours even open. We looked at the Bonefish Grill at 10:26 in the morning. I'm not sure this chart is useful to us, is my point. I mean, the idea that the Oaks has a quarter of their parking spaces filled before work starts on Sunday, before the mall opens on Sunday, basically, does not lead me in the direction I was hoping that it would lead me. I want to be for getting rid of parking minimums because I've read all the literature on it. But the truth is, people do still have cars, and they're going to have cars even if they're EVs. And I'm a huge fan of EVs, even bigger fan of transit. I would say that there's maybe Adrian and Lauren, but other than that, I'm probably the biggest fan of transit up here on the dais. But a well-used transit system, the best of transit systems, is not everybody. It partially is the problem of the developer if they develop something that doesn't have enough parking spaces. I don't think developers always make the best decisions. And then it becomes our problem if they build something that doesn't have enough. They build a great apartment complex that people want to live in, and then they realize, oh my goodness, we're going to have to just park on the streets. So I really want to support this, but I'm having trouble with it, particularly with this slide where we went and looked at parking at the wrong time of day in nearly every one of these. And I wonder what the parking would look like, not even at Christmas, but just at, I don't know, Saturday at 6 p.m. at Bonefish instead of Monday at 10:26 in the morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ariola?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I very much like the discussion that we're having right now, particularly going over some of the previous requirements that we've had, which in the discussion, it seemed as though they were arbitrary selections. So how do you know what's the right amount of spaces per bowling lane or something like that? I think that was what we saw. So I would like for us to remove our parking minimums. My major concern conceptually, which there's always a solution to these issues, would be the free rider issue, which is if development companies, homeowners, whatever, they decide they want to build more, have more homes, more units, if we do not have any kind of guidance, any city policy that can alleviate the issue of, well, we're not going to build any parking, period. Ultimately, if people decide to move in with cars, you would hope that someone would be aware of where they can park before they sign a lease. This is not always the case in Gainesville, but, we'll set that aside. So I guess my concern is, how can we make sure that we're keeping the streets from just becoming free-for-alls? That's really the only concern that I would have, because I do think that our parking minimums are too restrictive, and it ends up taking up, so much of the project land at the end of the day. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually when they stand up, they won't.
No. I think he's waiting for you, but go ahead.
Well, I'm waiting for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Andrew Parsons, Special Advisor to City Manager. There were a couple of points of clarification that I think may be helpful for the commission. I guess first, we have traditionally in Gainesville had a very progressive approach to parking requirements to begin with. So we have not only, as Mr. Castillo showed you, large swaths of the city where automobile parking we're talking about, is not required. We also have provisions in the land development code that we didn't talk about here that actually provide for further parking reduction outside of the Transect zone. So in our conventional zoning districts all throughout the city. And those are used fairly regularly with development. What we're talking about, and to Commissioner Ward's point about, sort of unfettered market, running amok, what this represents is not the city using dusty old standards for parking to set minimums, but instead not sort of turning it over to the market, because we do not, I could tell you, we do not see development in Gainesville coming in without any parking being provided for a number of reasons. One, people still have cars, they still drive places. That's still the dominant form of transportation in this country. And we're not urban enough to realistically, with the exception of maybe a few small pockets, really be able to kind of do everything you need to do without some form of conveyance, personal conveyance. Two, development financing requires parking as a minimum component of most projects. So it's not a city requirement, but it's a lender requirement that they want to see projects that have some parking within them. Whether that standard that the financier, whether that matches with the city standard, that is probably not the case, because the city standards have not been updated since probably the 1980s, 1990s. And so I want to make sure that this is not that drastic of a change from where we are today, because again, Gainesville has had a long history of being very progressive with its parking policy. The second thing I think I wanted to mention, in terms of the sort of analysis about parking maximums and parking use of some existing spaces here in Gainesville. The city also has existing parking maximum standards for the reasons that Mr. Castillo highlighted. We don't want the type of parking that was built in the 70s, which is essentially large parking lots like the Oaks Mall, built essentially to handle only peak demand during the holiday season. That is an inefficient use of land, and it creates greater stormwater impacts and all of the issues that Mr. Castillo highlighted. In fact, if you recall, a couple of years ago, this commission rezoned proactively the Oaks Mall property to a Transect zone. It had been commercial prior to that, had a large amount of unused parking. Subsequent to that rezoning, the Sears has now been replaced with Shands Outpatient, and we have an apartment project that is going to be underway, under construction, in the southeastern portion of the site on unused parking spaces. So those are examples where I think this type of approach will help sort of promote more of that. We don't anticipate, and we would not have recommended approval if we felt that this would sort of open the lid and we would have just everybody parking everywhere, because that, for new development, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about new development. We are not seeing projects come in with no parking. We're just seeing projects integrate parking, especially mid-rise and high-rise projects, integrate parking into the structure itself. So hopefully that's helpful. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context to some of it, because I know it's parking can be sometimes a sensitive issue. So.
Thank you. Did you conclude? Okay. Commissioner Saco?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to everyone who worked on this. Parking is a sensitive issue. Like, I've never seen people angrier than when they leave church and try to get out of a parking lot. So that's probably the meanest I've seen people be in a parking lot. So I'm not opposed to moving forward now. As Mr. Person said, nobody's proposing a structure or any development without parking. That would be economic suicide at this point. I do agree with Commissioner Ward. I wish we had better data. That said, we have eyes. I think everybody up here drives to some degree. Like, we've seen a lot of these spaces just sit empty throughout the year. So while hard data is really good, anecdotally, we've seen it with our own eyes. We know that this is true. So I am comfortable letting businesses kind of make that decision of how much parking will we need, and they can make that decision for themselves. What I do have a question about is the mid-street parking for businesses. So I know that it's going to be in transit zones, and I know that we have you, and you can always tell us where the transit zones are. How does the average bear know where a transit zone ends or starts? The question I'm getting to is, how will a business delivery or anyone know, oh, I am in a transit zone, I can definitely do this?
So, for the record, Juan Castillo. So transit zones are several things. The first one is when a property is zoned Transect, the adjacent street that's associated with the transit zone is labeled an urban street type. And so that urban street type has a designation of either principal street, thoroughfare street, etc. But that street type is associated with the transit zone area. So if a developer is doing a development and they will fall within that, first of all, of course, their property zone Transect, but any adjacent street has that designation of urban street type, then they would be eligible for that allowance of mid-street level parking. And of course, we would review that when a development comes before us. That would be one of the requirements for our review, is that to see what type of street type is there, the width of the street, whether that street would have the capacity to allow for mid-street, mid-street parking for the purposes of loading and unloading. That would, again, be part of that review. Does that answer your question?
That's the technical answer for everybody in this room. I'm talking about like the average human being. I open a shop. I don't know anything about zoning. I just know I rented this space. How do I know that I can do this?
Signage.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We're going to put up signage and mark this somehow. That is the answer.
That's right. That's what we do already for downtown. We mark it with, mark streets with
Listen, you
signage.
have a lot of signs downtown. I don't see them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you, thank you. One thing I did want to sort of point out, and I would ask for the commission's help with, I don't know, honestly, if the 200 parking space sort of threshold for structured parking isn't something that we may have to come back and address at a future, at a future date with the commission. We're just going to have to sort of see, because it's a little bit of a delicate threshold. I think what the intent is to try to discourage large surface parking lots and instead encourage more efficient use of land through structured parking. But obviously, there is a cost associated with structured parking that is higher than surface parking. And so I would just ask, the commission that if we come before you in 6 to 9 months and want to talk about this one issue again, that we have the that we have the space to do so. So that's it.
There's a fraternity party apparently out in our lobby.
Someone's having more fun than we are. I do have one final comment, Mr. Person, to that. I think if nothing else, the chart is useful for one very important thing. I actually know how many spots are in this. So we have some kind of frame of reference.
Yes.
So if you told me 500 spots, I'd go, I don't know how big that is.
Right.
If you told me 50, I still wouldn't know how big that is. So it does kind of give us an example of, those thresholds. So I think the one closest would be that Publix next to Target. 200 does not seem like a lot.
No.
And I guess if you make them smaller and smaller so cars don't fit, you can fit even more.
Right.
But it does give us kind of a visual reference of what that threshold would be.
Right. And I think that was the intent behind that, was to try to give some context for like what a 400 parking space lot looks like versus 200 with local context.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that Walmart on Waldo has almost 600. Would not have been a guess.
We are seeing, and I think a good example of this is the new Westgate Publix redevelopment. That is a smaller parking lot, and as you could see, it is really well used. Every time I'm over there, it is typically while you don't necessarily, I haven't had to, anecdotally speaking, drive around and try to find parking, but it is like a well-used lot during normal like peak hours. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get to with this, is that you have infrastructure that's being used close to capacity most of the time of the year, not infrastructure that's being used once or twice a year, and then the rest of the time sits essentially fallow. So.
Thank you, Mr. Persons. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm good to move forward at this time.
Yeah, thank you. I strongly support this. It doesn't prevent parking from being built. It's not a sort of punitive measure, but it allows for the right amount of parking for the right project. And, I think back to the project the commission approved just, I think, 2 weeks ago, for almost 800 people, and 100 parking spaces internal to the structure. So the reason they can do that is because the building is 3 blocks from our region's largest employer and the largest university in Florida. So most people that live there will be able to walk to do most of what they need to do. And it will be a luxury to own a car and live there. And I guarantee that those spaces will be expensive. They won't the first 100 people that show up get them. You will reserve that space. If you get there and someone's in your space, it will be towed. Commissioner Santos, do you know off the top of your head what a space goes for at standard? It's like $200 a month, I think. I think it's around there. So I mean, the point is that the market will regulate that because it's a commodity. Now they will not build more than they need because they don't want an unused asset sitting there that costs them average parking space costs $10,000 to build. So they're not going to build it unless they know that they can get a return for that. But they won't build too little because there is an incentive, a market incentive to build the right amount. And so this will allow a dynamic market to figure out what the right amount of parking is in the right spot. And that's very different for a project 3 blocks from the University of Florida campus versus, way out, say, in the Northwest, by the Walmart or Senior Center. The dynamics are just different. And I will say, I hate governing by anecdote, but I can say in all my time driving around Gainesville to businesses, to homes, to apartments, I can maybe count on one hand the number of times I haven't been able to find a parking spot. Right? Every time I go to Lowe's on 13th, which is almost a weekly occasion, usually twice in a day, where you know how that all works. You forget the one little thing. I've always had a parking space. There's too much parking there. And that drives up the cost of housing. It drives up the cost of commercial property, and it has significant environmental damage that is associated with that as well. So this is, I think, I do want to put a punctuation mark on something that Mr. Person said. This is not the drastic change in policy that many cities would see it as. We have already been kind of slow walking it up to that line with our current policies, and this is just sort of getting it across the goal line. Whereas, I was in Cleveland this summer. We went to a baseball game downtown, and it was just surface parking lot after surface parking lot. It was inefficient use of space, created a traffic nightmare, and so for them to do something like this would be a huge change. But I think this is absolutely the right time and the right policy that will add significant value to the way our community moves and lives and encourages businesses to locate in areas we want to attract them without driving up their entry-level costs because of the required parking. Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to talk about Duncan Walker on the electric vehicle. Some jurisdictions have mandated in some of their new apartments or parking garages, like some spaces be already built EV, but also have EV ready, where unless they build conduit to that place, when the time comes, you actually run and put in the system. And I've seen some at like 1%, some at 3%, some at 5% of the spaces. So there are some, that could be something the city looks at in terms of in new, it's in larger projects. They have done that to kind of prepare for the future, because there still isn't like a clear standardization on which charger. One thing I think we should consider as a city in a future budget is it's like having some EV chargers that we charge for just in our parking lots here. There really isn't that many in the downtown area, so that might be something to consider and kind of pilot in the future. For the parking minimums, to the point about like designing it for Christmas or things like that, we don't design our roads for game day. We design them for the 99% of the time. And by allowing, a developer is not going to build a project they don't think will be successful. And parking is something that they want, and they can still build the parking they need. One of the biggest complaints that I hear is the endless parking lots of Butler Plaza. That is one of the things that people, that's not Gainesville. And it's right, that's not, endless parking lots is not Gainesville. And it's my part of my district too. The Southport too, I got lots of parking lots.
Well, it's part of all of our districts, Mr. Chestnut and me and Commissioner Saco, so we'll all take ownership of
that. There are building some portions that are less parking intensive, like the Whole Foods. That's a smaller parking lot there. Yes, there is, yes. But by removing this restriction, we let the project kind of fit how they think will best work for them. And they're trying to make money. They want the business to be successful. So they'll build the parking that they need. But also we have to look at this environmentally. Surface parking lots are the absolute worst thing for the environment. It is impervious ground, stormwater, oil that drips down into the environment. It takes up the most space possible. It's used the least efficiently. By having kind of at a certain, just kind of stopping large, massive parking lots and having a structured garage, it's significantly better for the environment and significant better usage of space. There's also an affordability portion of this. People who are more wealthy have cars. People who are lower income usually are less likely to have cars. And in an apartment, if someone is forced to have a parking space, they don't have a car, they are having to pay for that in their rent. Instead of kind of where you've kind of seen some of these apartments go for, well, if you want a parking space, you pay for it. Then that cost is actually being bared by the person who is using the space versus someone who is low income, they have no cars. I mean, I think if you look in many of our Gainesville Housing Authority developments, those parking lots are not, or like low income, those parking lots are not full. And there's a reason for that, but they're made larger because of the mandates that we have put in. And there's a real cost to parking. It's one of the top things. And in the affordable housing plan that we got today, one of their things was look at removing parking minimums. So I hope that we can move forward on this, both as an affordability, but also as an environmental protection as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. You did make a motion, right? Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to follow back with Commissioner Ward. Were you requesting another review of the percentage of usage, this chart?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to ask you to go back out and do all that work again, but this is dubious.
Some of them.
Yeah, the times of day and the days are aside from the middle of the night, are some of the lowest usage. So it would certainly help sway me to see that at busier times there was still tons of availability, rather than trusting my own judgment on it and governing by anecdote. But I don't know that I'd want to ask the staff time to go do another one.
Well, I think I'd just like to see some of them before the second reading. You can see you've got not great usage, but 66% of the usage at Walmart at 10:45 in the morning. But I would like to see some of the usage at the other sites. So you don't have to do the whole study, but just take a snapshot. Look at some of the others.
Mr. Persons,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Castillo are nodding, they can do that. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So good conversation. I will say that I don't have great faith in the market to make great decisions. Sometimes, very often, the market makes great decisions. The problem is once it's built, if it's a bad decision, it's too late. I get that the funding doesn't come through for things that don't make sense most of the time. But we only need it to be wrong once and built to have to live with it. I am going to be a soft no on this, but I'm willing to be convinced. I will tell you that I am really big on the parking maximums. I love the idea of stopping overbuilding of particularly surface parking. Surface parking is a huge problem for a variety of reasons. It's poor use of space. It's bad for the environment. We don't want to overbuild that. I like parking maximums, but I'm not quite there on the minimums. That doesn't mean I can't get there. This is clearly going to go by on first reading. I am interested to see if my mind can be changed for second reading. I've read Shoup's work. I get it. I'm not, new to it. I just don't trust the market to do the right thing. I think the market is great as long as government is there to herd it and lead it in the right direction. That's us. So I'd love to get together with staff before second reading. I'd love to be sold on this because I really want to vote for it, but I'm not voting for it today. Thank you.
Okay, anybody signed up to speak to this, Madam Secretary? That's a big promotion, yeah. They call you that for the rest of your life, too. Madam Clerk, as a roll call vote.
Commissioner Ariola? Commissioner Chestnut? No. Commissioner Saco?
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan Walker? Nay. Commissioner Ward?
No.
Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Aye.
And Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes 4-3 with Chestnut, Ward, and Duncan Walker in dissent. And I just want to be clear that the embedded in that motion was a request that we get the 5-year accident data for the loading, the mid-street loading. Thank you. So yeah, if we could either memo and then also include it in backup for the second reading if it's possible by then. Okay, our last item this evening is commission comment. Is there any commission comment? Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Spurred by some of the conversation about EVs, I would love us to have a workshop scheduled, not necessarily immediately. Obviously, we're very busy. But if we don't have the workshop to get started and include our sustainable development folks and our GRU folks to start the conversation and to really nail down some of what we expect of developers, particularly, because I'm told by some people, electrician friends, that we don't have the network capacity for what might be coming and that we need to be thinking about that infrastructure as we move forward. Because I'm encouraged by some folks at UAB discussions who pointed out that maximum EV use in this town would be worth to our utility the equivalent of 2 or 3 full contracts for UF power. So there is a tremendous amount of potential revenue from this, and it's good for the environment. It's just generally good, but we need to make sure our infrastructure is prepared for it, and we're not going to do that if we wait around until somebody does the wrong thing. So if we could just start looking at a workshop on that, I would love it. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the city manager and I are making eye contact. Yeah, we will get some staff together and we'll start working on that and then be prepared to bring some information and do a workshop and something like that in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, to that point, Commissioner, that is one of the recommendations that the Environmental Justice Subcommittee has made to the next commission to include a increment for what it would cost to build out a plan. That's different, of course, from implementing that plan. Many cities have done successful EV infrastructure rollouts. Some of them, unfortunately, were a bit too eager and ahead of the curve, and that ended up costing them pretty big. So it's all about the implementation and how you get the funding for that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.